I know what you're all thinking. Rob, how do you get so attractive? But after that, I thought you were going to start talking about this. Well, I mean, I had my lovely interview with Alison, and then the Channel Awesome reviews did really well. The change to channel reviews, people seem to be liking them. So I just thought it'd be interesting to look at the Google document nearly 7 years later. Haven't read it since. And just give you my honest opinion. All jokes aside, there's people at Channel Awesome I like. There's people at Change the Channel that I like. And it's been enough time. Most people are aware that my opinion on a lot of it has changed since then. I just thought this would make an interesting video. Also, I mean, I have spoken to people on both sides, so I can kind of provide a bit of insight and just my opinion on everything. And I will be completely honest, because there are some things in the document that are valid, and then there's some things that just aren't. Obviously, there's certain things I can't disclose because of confidentiality with certain people, but I'm still going to go through it and just give my absolute honest opinion, and it will be completely unbiased and impartial. Oh, speaking of which, Not So Awesome, a record of events while working for that guy with the glasses. So you didn't even get the company's name right. There are many different grievances that need to be shared, but the following points are what we feel are the most grievous and should be known by the public above all others. Above all others! Bear that in mind. This is for record/organisation and to help clarify and inform. This is not about defamation or destruction, but about clearing the air and correcting misconceptions. I mean, it was about defamation. Let's be honest, because when the opportunity presented itself to discuss things with Channel Awesome and kind of make amends, or at least like have a conversation, you guys weren't interested. So let's just be honest. Let's not tiptoe around this. It was always about defamation. Thank you for taking the time to read the contents of this document. Within this many pages are lengthy stories from a number of contributors airing their grievances about the way they and others were handled by working professionally with Channel Awesome and the management, namely Mike Michaud, Doug Walker and Rob Walker. Although the descriptions are vast, this very likely does not cover every possible story of mismanagement over the course of the last 10 years. There are other content creators, both those who were previously partnered with Channel Awesome and those who continue to be partnered with Channel Awesome, who have not contributed their stories to this document, though many of their stories can be found in other places if you look hard enough. If you want to know more, you've got to do the research. There are numerous reasons why any of us would want to share these stories with you. The biggest one is simply a strong common belief that the public deserves the right to know about the dealings within this company. When much of this was finally becoming greatly public in the middle of March 2018, many people wanted answers to many different questions. And while it seemed like our Twitter feed were containing all of these answers, Twitter is not an especially easy to read format, especially when it branches and splinters when new people join the conversation. The number one reason to create this document is to give the audience one solid place to be to read all of these stories, updated directly by former content producers so that you have the most accurate information directly from us. What I don't understand is, like, there were so many of you, and yet it was me who made a documentary. Like, you're all content creators. Some of you make videos for a living. Why do a Google Doc? If you were so adamant, like, you'd get a lot more views and a lot more, as I proved, making a video rather than a document. I don't know, it's just really random. You just couldn't be asked. Many may wonder what the ultimate goal of releasing the document is. That goal may be different to each contributor. Some may wish to simply get this information off their chest after having held on to it for many years. Others may want the management of Channel Awesome to answer for their many egregious behaviours over the last decade. How'd that work out for you? One goal many contributors share is the hope that Channel Awesome would both acknowledge and apologise for their behaviours, both on a public and personal level with the former and current producers. However, we do not necessarily expect that apology, as nice as that may be. Perhaps the best we can hope for is acknowledgement of any sort, good or bad. If that's not possible, then certainly we all hope that by telling our stories we are able to protect other innocent people from having to experience anything like this in the future. I feel like I'm going to regret this video because this is... They're making them out like Hitler. Whether that be in the form of a contributor or a fan, none of us want anyone else to go through the kind of treatment we went through over 10 long years. Some behaviour being much worse than others. No shit. We believe that whether you're working with Channel Awesome or another similar entertainment entity, there will be people in this world who do not actually care about who you are and are more than willing to say whatever they need to say and do whatever it takes to use you for your gifts and your talents to boost themselves without giving you a second thought. Marzgurl talking about talent, that's cute. I mean, she is right. Obviously there was the stuff with Cultaholic, Adam Blompier, and then he got in Recently again, you know, some people are assholes. We hope that other people considering partnering with an entertainment group will take our stories as a cautionary tale and use our stories to protect themselves as they join the vast world of content creation. As a personal note, I often regret not speaking up about things I witnessed any sooner than I did. Perhaps now is too little too late, but if we can help you make heads or tails of this now, today, then maybe the time is right for us to do the right thing and tell you what we've been through. Thank you for taking the time to read our stories about our times at Channel Awesome and the management of Mike, Doug and Rob. We wish all of you nothing but the best and to use our pages to reach your own logical conclusions for yourselves. Obviously, this is now going to be filled with genuine criticisms. I mean, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again in this video. I hold no allegiance to either side. I've never done any, collaboration with Channel Awesome. I don't plan to. I've attempted, I'll be honest, change the channel. Again, there's people on there I like. So I've got no allegiance with either side. This is just my opinion. I'm not trying to piss anyone off. Speaking of people being pissed off, we start with Alison Pregler. Woo! We were not employed by Channel Awesome. Channel Awesome simply embeds videos on their site. Outside of the anniversary movies, no contracts were involved. The only people paid are the people involved with the Chicago crew. Is that a grievance? What? That's got its own bullet point. Why is that I don't understand. It's YouTube. Your videos are being embedded onto a popular website. Like Doug could fart and get your views. You should be thanking them. But you wanted to be paid. But you didn't have to be on the site. Okay, anyway. The biggest of the numerous problems is Mike Machard, the site's CEO. There were two other CEOs when they started, Mike Ellis and Bargo. I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he played Matty. Both of whom are no longer with the site. The name Greg occasionally appears in this document. This is Mike Machard's brother who handles the scheduling of producer videos. Okay, so Mike Machard, yeah, again, I know nothing about the guy. I think he's appeared briefly in some of their videos. This is the thing, I want to also preface by saying I wasn't there for any of this. I wasn't there for the anniversary movies. All of that stuff is just going to be hearsay. It's going to be, what's publicly accessible versus their word. Mike owns the IP of the Nostalgia Critic character and is a majority shareholder in the company. I don't know why these are bullet points. Okay, you're just stating facts. Doug is the Nostalgia Critic. On two separate occasions, women were confronted angrily by either Mike Ellis or Mike Machard being blamed for something a guy they knew did. One of these instances resulted in the producer leaving. See Lindsay Ellis section. I don't know if there was sexist behaviour. However, this is something I want to come back to later. Just take a mental note of this. Frequently, if a guy spoke up, it was ignored. If a woman spoke up, they were labelled troublemakers. Mike would frequently try to bully them. Most of the women felt very uncomfortable talking to him. It was a repeating pattern that he would be more aggressive towards someone speaking up if they were a woman. At least 3 of us were kicked off the site for that very reason, when male producers who did the same thing are still on the site. Now, this might be valid. I don't know Mike Machard. My only issue here is that Alison has a tendency to make things about gender when it isn't. Even when she and I had our problems, I mean, we still don't like each other. People would reply and say, he's mad because a woman has an opinion, when I never used any misogynistic terms. My issue stemmed from Erod, who, as far as I'm aware, has a penis. That's what started this whole thing. But people made it a gender issue, and from what I've seen, Alison tends to do that as well. Alison, maybe it's because you're a dick. Not because you're a woman without a dick. I don't know. There might be truth behind the misogyny. I don't know. Obviously, there is the case that Noah did what he did. He made a rape joke. He got fired, left. It was kind of a grey area. He got a whole send-off, whereas people like Alison just got a bye-bye and farted away. Difference is Noah has talent. More details in Sean and Holly's section, but Channel Awesome was aware of sexual harassment from Mike Ellis for at least 2 years and did nothing. When he was finally let go, it was for other legal reasons. They were also aware of a prominent producer who was grooming female fans and coercing them into sex and failed to take action for years. So, sorry if I get some of these details wrong. I believe the second one that she's referring to there is Juario. That's going to be one word against the other. Change the channel, say that they fired Justin a year after finding out about this. Channel Awesome said it was like 2-3 weeks because they had to, see their legal team. Mike Ellis, again, it's always going to be hearsay. So we don't know. We don't know because there's no evidence here. It's just claims. I don't know if there's evidence later on, but all communication was done via a Skype group chat with all of the producers. We did not communicate through email, and Mashad would disappear for long periods of time. No one wanted to talk to us. Are these the most heinous accusations that went in a Google Doc? So no one would talk to you. Don't get me wrong. Yes, if your whole business communication is a Skype call, is a Skype chat, then yes, that's unprofessional and a bit incompetent. But to put it in a doc with the claims that come later, it's just really petty that no one wanted to talk to us. The people we were told to talk to were Mashad, Rob, and Holly, HR. When Holly was fired, it was just those two. Mike was so against being involved with or doing anything that he eventually became silent CEO, which meant it was just Rob who also didn't want the job. Anytime we came to him with complaints, he would call us children behind our backs. Again, I don't know. Maybe he did. But then, someone would have had to tell you that Rob was talking behind your back, which means they're talking behind Rob's back. So you're friends with people just as two-faced as who you're... I don't know, maybe Rob's two-faced. Doug is not considered anything but talent, yet frequently is part of business calls and the like, including ones highlighted here. He also is occasionally part of company decisions. He is more involved with business than he likes to let on, and is also involved as a human being and face of the company. Well, yeah, because he writes the anniversary film. No one ever doubted that he was anything less than a big name. He's the nostalgia critic. Without him, no one would know who any of you are. I've never seen anyone say, oh yeah, Doug's just the talent. He's constantly listed as writer, producer. I think most people were aware that he was more than that. They were so unaware of anything going on with the site that Rob thought someone asking for an interview was a producer. Okay. Communication was the worst. They would never tell us anything. It was like pulling teeth to get answers from anyone. Frequently, we would find out things after the fact and have to come to them to find out what was happening. I don't know how you got through that, Alison. Look, I can hook you up with a good therapist to get you through this difficult time. Blistered Thumbs producers were never told the site was shutting down. They found out when they saw the announcement on the front page. Several producers were let go without being informed. If that is true, which I'm assuming no one's spoken out to dispute that, I'm assuming, otherwise we would have heard about it. So yes, that is shitty. Well done, you get a cookie. When I joined the site, I was given a list of rules to follow, mostly common sense things like don't post hate speech, etc. The section saying where to find the company policy was labelled coming soon. But didn't you join in 2010, so you weren't in Kikasia? So you must have joined between 2010 and 2011. I mean, the channel was still building. But this is the thing, I think Channel Awesome were just overly ambitious and they just went all guns a-blazing immediately. I just think they went, like Doug said, they went too big too soon. At a later point in time when I'm creating Radu reviews, I'm randomly told I need to ask them permission to do new shows. They had a rule in place for events such as filming a new show with your friends as a host, for example, but not anything like what I was doing. So I asked Rob for permission and he seems to have no idea why I'm asking. What's the point of this? Kaylyn's opening is talking about how disgustingly cancerous this company is and never work with them. And then you read the actual doc and it's like, no one spoke to each other. Years later, Phelan is astounded to find out this list exists because no one who came onto the site before me got these rules or were told about them. Poor you, Alison. I'm sure that is true because the world is out to get Alison Pregler, you see. Let's all pray for her. The rules were arbitrarily enforced and usually if they wanted an excuse to get rid of someone anyway. At one point, they sent a written reprimand to Welshie that was meant for Sad Panda because they couldn't tell the difference between them. Sorry, it's just... it's kind of fun. Again, these are things that okay, incompetent, they went too big, but it's not abuse. It's not abuse! Phelan received a reprimand for tweeting a joke making fun of the demo reel twist by saying he was going to reveal Phelis was Sub-Zero the whole time. He was told to apologise to Doug personally. Yeah, isn't it bad, Alison, when people can't take a joke? Doug knew nothing tech-wise to the point of endless frustration. He didn't know how to record commentaries. He would just have people in Chicago sit close to the camera and record it on the onboard mic. When he had to record the Moulin Rouge commentary over Skype, he asked me to sit in and record it. I was not part of the Moulin Rouge crossover. He just wanted me to press record and sit there. Phelan called him up and explained step by step how to use MP3 Skype recorder, which requires a simple press of a button to use. He ended up calling Nash and having him to record it. This is a document about abuse and sexual assault, but Doug can't record Skype calls. What is this? So Doug didn't know something on a computer. Doesn't that piss you off that he gets 3 times your views then? During my earlier days on the site, we would have to fight to get slots for the day, but especially during the holidays. Doug proceeds to hog the slots with his lazy Disney December vlogs. The lazy vlogs that get more views than yours. This is the thing, they talk about this throughout the doc. They just marketed Doug. Yes, because it's a business, and who makes the most money? Doug! What's going on? Why are they pushing their main star? Oh my god. Scorsese, why are you giving Leonardo DiCaprio top billing in your film? He's the lead! They considered conventions a waste of time, despite their contradictory belief that they should do all of their advertising locally. They hated that we went to MagFest because of a bad experience Doug had there once, despite the fact we all paid to go there on our own dimes. Might be true, I don't know. I know Channel Awesome, they go to conventions a lot now. So it might just be ignorance, and then they realised, oh, conventions are actually pretty cool. They never wanted to pay anyone. One of the DVDs, they had a cover contest for fans where they asked for Drew Struzan style artwork for $100, plus a link to the deviant art on the cover. They were shamed into upping the price to $300. Skitch did the soundtracks for the anniversary movies for next to nothing, and Mashad was furious when he tried selling the music because he was under the belief it belonged to them. I mean, you did the music for the movie, though. And if you're going to try to sell it, you would then go to the people who make the movie. Yes, you made the music, but it's for the movie. It's specifically for that. This is the thing. Did you just not think to ask them first? You're all complaining about Channel Awesome not communicating, but a lot of these issues could have been communicated before, and you just never did it. This is the thing, right? I reviewed Mike Jevons' movie with Oliver, who appeared in it. He paid the Indiegogo campaign, or Kickstarter, whatever it was, to be in the movie. Because of that, he got to be in the film, and he was sent a DVD of it. And guess what? The DVD came, and it didn't work. Do you know what Oliver did? He just said, oh, all right. And moved on with his life! And the thing is, like, Oliver has admitted to me, if he went to Mike and said, oh, hey, yeah, the DVD arrived but it didn't work, Mike probably would have been like, oh, I'm really sorry, let me send you a replacement. But Oliver didn't particularly care. At least the communication would have been there. But you people just apparently just, oh, well, that's my music, I'm going to go sell it without communicating anything. Every decision felt self-motivated and uncaring toward other producers. It was the Doug Show, because he gets the most views. August 2013, Channel Awesome uses Indiegogo to crowdfund $90,000 for their pop culture game show, Retro Pop Culture Challenge, later Pop Quiz Hot Shot, a comic review show, Awesome Comics, and another game show revolved around video games, The Gaming Gauntlet. 40-something episodes were promised a Pop Quiz Hot Shot. Channel Awesome films at least a dozen versions of the pilot and test episodes. Some of them include the same questions and contestants. The refilming is due to the studio not being sound dampened. Because of this, they filmed Nostalgia Critic episodes in the office where it is smaller and there's less echo. They tried to rig the questions so the contestant would win, but accidentally switched the cards so it went in Doug's favour. Doug splits the prize, a $100 gift card. They had to be told to have prizes by Holly. The game show was Mashad's idea and no one else wanted to do it. The Indiegogo rewards are 6+ months late. March 2015, a year and a half since the show was promised. After Indiegogo threatens to investigate, Mashad forces Doug and Rob to release the first episode of Pop Quiz Hot Shot, which they are all embarrassed about. After 12 episodes, the show is cancelled because that legally covers them as an effort to fulfill the Indiegogo goals. Awesome Comics begins production using the old game show set in March 2016 and ends March 2017. The Gaming Gauntlet never materializes. So, from what I can gather, because I've never heard Channel Awesome respond to this, the people I've spoke to privately, I haven't spoken to them about this. So, I'm going to assume that this is true. Because if it was bullshit, they hadn't scammed people out of $90,000, then they would just come out and deny it. And I don't think they addressed this in their response. It was probably something, I don't know, some people say it was a conspiracy. They spent the money to fix debt or something. I don't know. Maybe they built, I don't know, the set, it does not look like $90,000. I don't know what they did with the money. Maybe they thought it was a good idea and it just looked and they were like, we can't release this crap. The anniversaries! Woo! Let's get on to them. Channel Awesome paid for travel, lodge and meals when they were during filming hours. Otherwise, we were on our own. You, in your late 20s and early 30s, had to pay for your own food? so sorry, Alison. All this time, all these years I've been making jokes. Alison, I'm so sorry. I think I judged you too quickly. Look, please reach out. My email's in the description. They had to be told to have water on set. We were not paid for our time, nor did we make any revenue from the DVDs. You didn't have to do it! This is what I don't understand. Like, say I was Film Brain. We use Film Brain as an example, and Doug hits me up and he goes, do you want a paid-for flight to America and a paid-for hotel and paid breakfast, lunch and dinner? Yeah, I would definitely do that because it's good exposure to your channel. It's a free trip to the States, covered hotel, and you get to hang out with some amazing people. I don't get the issue of not being paid and not making revenue from the DVD. Do you realise that actors don't get revenue from DVDs? Are you aware of this? Do you think that happens? Have you never heard of acting? We were paid an exposure and a free trip with our friends. Yeah. What's wrong with that? When we pointed out that exposure didn't mean anything after the first time, we were told we didn't have to go to them. But it's true! Mike in particular liked to state how great it was that they embedded, not hosted, our videos and never asked for a cut of our revenue. Traffic on that guy with the glasses / channel awesome generated by other producers gave them ad revenue, so it would be ridiculous to ask for a cut of the money on our videos. Well, yeah, so if Mike did say that, he's an idiot. This was the only thing they asked us to sign contracts for, which covered such things as injury, liability, etc. The contract also stated that any crossovers we filmed during the production would go to them to help recoup costs. So we were asked to work for our privilege to be there, which not only went into what little time we had between filming to rest, but into our work hours at home editing them. And the anniversaries themselves took time out of our normal work, meaning it also cost us money that way. We were allowed to keep commentary tracks we did for our videos, but those got very little views. Okay, so first of all, taking time out of your normal work wouldn't cost you money because you would book a holiday. Do you not get paid for holidays in America? Secondly, yes, asking for the money for your crossovers that you film there is ridiculous because surely the movie itself would pay for itself. You know, you market it well, you get the views back, you make the money back. I'm not understanding the logic there. So yeah, you're right on that front. Don't get used to it. Doug's style of directing is to tell us to do it more like him. If we pointed out we wouldn't deliver a line like that, he'd tell us, we'll try it both ways so he could use the take of us doing it his way. We'll try it both ways became a running joke. So Alison, I don't know if you know about this, but the director of a movie is in charge. So a director chooses which take he likes best. Can you imagine Leonardo DiCaprio going up to Scorsese? He's like, you pick the 7th take, not the 6th. He's the director. It's his choice. It's his film. Who cares? Most of them are anyway. It was embarrassing when we were filming in the park and Doug would start giving directions to passers-by like they were part of the production. Did that really happen? You can't just say that sentence. You need to give more context. Like, what? As it was done with Kikasia, they only have one camera with Rob at the helm. This is a larger production and with 2 teams, so Lindsay and Ed have a closed-door meeting with them to convince them to use more than one camera. They borrow Todd's, it was the same model, and one of my SD cards. Ed, who was there to play a cloak, is recruited to cameraman, and Liz, Lewis's guest, is asked to play a cloak. Because of this, she never signed a contract. When filming a stunt with Orlando, her knee is bashed in and they coerce her into signing a contract that says they aren't liable. She doesn't want to do it because it would give them ownership of whatever she'd filmed there. The 2 camera thing, again, overly ambitious, way in over their heads. Ignorant. That's what I boil that down to. The injury thing, pretty douchey. But I mean, she never signed a contract, so even if she was injured, they wouldn't be liable, right? They didn't need to get her to sign anything. She willingly helped out. Any of these people know law? 4 people in total were injured during the movie and no safety precautions were ever put in place. Liz and Bennett were both hurt during stunts with Orlando and Orlando himself landed on his neck rock. This was included in the blooper reel. Eliza was taped to the wall in a cross position and because she was there for so long she nearly passed out. Edited after a correction from Elise. Yes, because she said that this never happened. So you put this all in a doc, released it to the public without fact checking. As for the studs, it's a low-budget independent film. You read the script, you know what's involved. You don't have to say, yeah, when you got the script, you could be like, no, I'm not doing that. I mean, did you already sign the contract before you got the script? Because then that's on you. The weather was cold and some people like Ben had pretty flimsy costumes, so the higher-ups were worried about us. We had a meeting where they asked us if we wanted to make it an improvised mockumentary and shoot it indoors, but we unanimously voted to keep going. There was a sense of camaraderie there that was completely absent from To Boldly Flee. So what's the grievance here. They were gonna cancel it and stop the torment, and we said let's keep going. I don't get it. I point to Boldly Fleet as the tipping point between maybe they'll change and this is never going to get better. Completely different experience reading the script versus Suburban Nights. This felt long, self-indulgent, sexist, and mean. Mean. How old are you? Also, self-indulgent. Did you watch the first two? Scenes that were just quoting other movies verbatim were embarrassing. Did you watch the first two? The excessive scenes with Zod and Tur were infuriating and ate up time that could have focused on the producers and not more of Doug's shtick. Agreed, but most of the other producers are shit anyway. I never received a To Boldly Flee DVD. Neither did many fans who bought them because they messed up the orders and it was never fixed. Mike J did the same thing. I mean, he sent them, but they didn't work. It happens. It just happens. Did you communicate? Why would you even want a DVD of a movie that apparently made you miserable? The crossovers to recoup costs were not required, and during To Boldly Flee, things were so absurdly overscheduled that we were too exhausted and annoyed to make them. During the meeting, Mashad and Doug try and guilt us into making crossovers to cover costs such as effects. Phelan was half of the effects team, so this was equivalent of asking him to pay himself. We make a stand and tell them no, eventually coming to an agreement that we can make 2 crossovers and keep 1. I threw out the script of the crossover I was planning with Brad. Well, you showed him. The scripts weren't given out until the 11th hour because Doug and Rob were fighting over it the whole time. We barely had time to read it and most people didn't. Well, to be fair, the length of it, that doesn't surprise me. Especially, I think Film Brain said that you were required to pay for your own costumes, and when you're given the script at the last minute, that's pretty I mean, I thought they would have at least covered the costumes, because didn't they pay for them the first 2 times? We only had about a week to film this 4-hour movie, and that's only because Holly begged them for an extra day. Every day, Doug scheduled 2 days worth of work because he assumed having proper equipment and crew would make things go faster. It sounds like you're all signing the contract before getting a script. And again, that's on you. No one was informed that Doug was killing off the nostalgia critic. Most of us found out only if we read the scripts. Todd and I found out earlier because Doug called us to ask if they can conclude the love triangle storyline we'd set up in our videos and then mentioned it offhandedly. I'd say what's they got to do with you, but I think it's because without Doug, you've got no income. Doug asked if he could use the joke where Todd was stalking me in the movie, and his version of that was apparently me being a cold, heartless vacuum for turning down my stalker. I go on a date with him by the end. That was the joke. What? That was... Do you not understand humour? I mean, I've watched it recently because I reviewed it, and the joke wasn't cold. You were actually quite funny in that movie by turning him down. There was never, she's a bitch. He was obviously the creepo. If anything, Lindsay was the bitch. Other than that, we were never asked for our input on the movie scripts. He's the writer! Why'd you have input? He's the writer and director! What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Why would you expect input on the script? You're not a writer, just an actor. There was a scene in the script where it implies Mechakara is raping her off screen, and she and Lewis had to fight with them on set to say they wouldn't do it as scripted. It's still in the movie, but slightly different. Doug did not understand that it came off as offensive. This is something that people don't see. Rape can be joked about, guys. There's been many occasions. South Park, Blazing Saddles, Family Guy, Borat, Monty Python. Many people have made rape funny, and this particular joke I did find funny. However, it doesn't work because, obviously, as you said, it gets toned down, so all the sexual innuendos are removed, so it doesn't make sense when Film Brain overhears and thinks that they're f***ing. That doesn't make sense because the sex noises aren't there, so the joke kind of falls flat anyway. Lindsay was also uncomfortable with the fight scene she and I had, and she pointed this out when we were on set. Doug had no idea what to do, so his response was just to make us do it. But you didn't have to agree to the shoot. You saw the script. Why would you be uncomfortable doing a fight scene anyway? Much of the dialogue included lines about the age of reviewers ending and made it seem like we were retiring because Doug was, which really hurt all of our feelings. It seemed to be throwing us under the bus. Our feelings? You're in your 30s! I get what they're saying. It did look like all of them were ending, but who gives a about most of you anyway? And he proved the point anyway. I mean, who on there has even made a name for themselves? Lindsay, Joe, Linkara, Dom. We were always behind schedule, and Doug and Rob would always stop the shoot for pointless arguments. For instance, there was a scene where Todd and I are talking to Nostalgia Critic, and when we were done with the shot, Todd went to take his costume off, which took a few people to do. When I'm sitting next to Gillian, I noticed they're shooting the other half of that scene with the camera pointed directly at where we were supposed to be standing. So we point that out to them. They start to argue again for 10 minutes when there are only 2 options: get me and Todd back or change the camera angle. Filming sometimes falls behind schedule. You're complaining because you were in a movie. Welcome to Hollywood, motherfucker. Gillian was there to keep them on schedule, and every time she brought up the time, she would be ignored, so we were always way behind. They asked her to choreograph a complex lightsaber fight scene, which she did, but they ended up sending her to the hotel due to exhaustion and not using her fight. So I'm going to assume based on that the voice in the behind the scenes was actually her, but it was one of you who delayed filming.
It's getting bigger!
That's what she said.
Oh, dick!
They're already behind schedule.
Interesting. Whenever anything happened like bad continuity, Rob would just say, oh well, plot hole. One day, the camera crew had to go home early for personal reasons, so they told Doug early in the day that would be the case. He forgot to tell anyone, so at the end of the day, we didn't have enough cars to take everyone back to the hotel or dinner. Phelan, Julian and I got left behind while everyone else went to Applebee's. I'm so sorry, Alison. Ed, who was a cameraman and credited as DP, he asked them not to, pointed out during the scene with Brad they were breaking the 180 rule. Cue 10-minute argument. Ed furiously says they either want it to look right or look wrong. He vows never to work with them again, and then appears in the next anniversary movie. Violating the 180 rule. Pieces of shit. You got Stanley Kubrick tormenting Shelley Duvall and making her life miserable. You got Gene Kelly forcing people to dance until they got blisters and are in hospital. Doug Walker violates the 180 rule. There was a scene with a bunch of the cast passed out on top of each other on the floor, so they called a bunch of them into the basement to film it and kept them there even when they weren't shooting. Eventually, someone asks Ed if they're even on camera and he says no. They had Phelan's foot in one shot. That is how movies work. You don't know until you've got the shot set up. Sometimes things get cut out. That's how movies work! One day was an 18-hour shoot, and the next day after 3 hours sleep we were asked to film the big party scene. They asked us to film 2 different endings, despite being overscheduled and exhausted. Once that is over, they want to film a green screen bit with Phelan. Phelan points out he can film it at home, which would save them time they didn't have, and after waiting forever they say yes. We're driven to the hotel to sleep, and our heads barely hit the pillow when my phone rings. They want Phelan to shoot the green screen part. He is the angriest I've ever seen him. We make it to the lobby where Rob is waiting to drive us back and make it halfway down the road while explaining the situation, before Rob makes an executive decision to drive us back to the hotel. Look, the thing is, yes, this obviously is incompetent as a company. They didn't really know what they were doing. But I do boil this down to going too big too quickly, thinking they could achieve more than they could. These are obviously mistakes that they've learnt from, or I'd imagine so. You're acting like they burnt your puppy alive. They never asked him to film the green screen bit and it's not in the film. Oh no! Not a single person wasn't miserable except Doug. Yeah, looks it.
No. I heard it too.
Who had no idea how badly it had went. He thought this was a grandiose send-off that everyone was happy with, just completely in his own world. They had to have a private meeting with him to tell him the state of things. Once shooting was done for what we knew was the last anniversary movie, they weren't even planning on having a wrap party. We had an unplanned one. Doug was late. He gives us personalised goodbye letters. Okay. They assumed Phelan would do the 3D effects for the flying houses and such, and Phelan pointed out to him that he's not a 3D animator. After the movie was done filming, they do a contest to find 3D animators. Okay. When Noah left the site, Phelan got the rest of his effects load. A separate team of effects folks were created in Chicago as well. They had little to no communication with Phelan. Okay! When Phelan finished an effect and sent it to Doug, Doug responds with, "Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it, love it." Later they ask Welshie to try and stealthily find out if Phelan was half-assing the effects because I guess they wanted more debris in the shot. Welshie just directly goes to Phelan and tells him what they said. Phelan's feelings are hurt. All they had to do was tell him they wanted more debris instead of sneaking around. Welshie's a bit of a stirrer. I'm kidding! Yeah, pretty shitty. For the 5th year, they asked certain producers if they can make a short film to be included in an anthology with an internet theme. They offered no payment or resources at all, only the ability to post the shorts on their own channel in exchange for giving them the DVD rights. So basically, they were asking them to make a short film for them for free and also to let them make money off of it. Phelan was asked and said no. Yeah, I don't know. I can't really defend it. But again, people didn't have to. So even Mike J complained about that, but you didn't have to do it. So if you do it, then it's your fault. This is brought up to try and clarify some points involving Channel Awesome, not to drag up old dirt. For the record, Noah and I apologised a long time ago. I'm glad you apologised to someone. After Noah posts some questionable stuff on Twitter, I call him out and this leads to a breakdown due to undiagnosed bipolar disorder. He lashes out at fans and it gets nasty on both ends. I received death threats at my house. So Brad, you didn't give a Channel Awesome suspends Noah. The meltdown continues, so they tell him he either stops talking like that on Twitter or he must leave. He chooses to leave. People assume I got him fired. Noah makes a post saying this isn't the case, and Channel Awesome says nothing. This leads to a conspiracy that the women on the site collaborated to kick him off the site. Why is it a company's job to defend you? Like, Noah's left. He's no longer an employee. Why would a company come out and say, just so you know, it wasn't Alison's doing? I've never heard of a company doing this. What? BBC. By the way, Greg didn't get Kathy fired. No one does that, Alison! Channel Awesome wants to suspend me for posting about the incident and specifically about context and rape jokes. I said nothing about Channel Awesome and it broke none of the rules. Decide against it because Phelan is doing the effects for To Boldly Flee and they don't want to lose him. I receive a written reprimand. A new page of rules is given to some producers, not all, which includes activity on social media. And then you can leave because you're not paid or given a contract. Are we nearly done with this, Alison? Wow, you talk so... You're on 16 pages of just Alison. In 2013, everyone on the site is fed up with the terrible communication and broken promises, to the point of all coming together and giving the higher-ups a list of grievances. This leads to a series of calls where we were divided into groups to discuss our issues with them. I tell them that the way To Boldly Flee was scripted made it sound like all of us were retiring along with Doug, and the site should have been informed he was getting rid of the character, since it affected all of us. Rob laughs it off by saying he was only thinking of it as a story, and my point is never addressed. I mean, I think it's a point worth raising, but I don't think it's a point... No, I think Alison's in the right with this. The To Boldly Flee DVD was put up on the site store with a release date before Mike even contacted Ed to get them made. I was there when he called him. I asked Mike why that was, and he responded that it takes 2 weeks to make DVDs. I point out that they could get them done earlier than that release date, and that still doesn't make sense. And it devolves into him shouting 2 weeks at me nonsensically. There's so many that have nothing to do with anything. One of the promises in their response to this list of grievances was to give us newsletters to update us on what was going on with the site. They proceeded to do 2 by email and 1 on the internal site before giving up. One of these newsletters hilariously tries to tell us that the anniversaries have stopped because of the weather. We all knew and respected that they stopped because they were expensive and exhausting, so it seemed nonsense to come up with such an outlandish lie. It also defeated the point of being more communicative if they weren't going to be truthful. I don't think it was a lie, I just think it was adding on to it. It probably didn't help. They've never once updated their internal site in 10 years. To this day, it's an Icky Sports Joomla template. Barry Festa and Blistered Thumbs are still on the scheduling drop-downs. They didn't turn searchability off, so their internal site comes up on Google. I can still use my access info and get in because they never changed it. What does this have to do? Why is this to do with your treatment? I don't understand! After years of asking to redesign that guy with the glasses into a better looking site, they decide to revamp it as Channel Awesome. This is partially because of our request to make things more about the community and less central to Doug. They release it with a banner with Doug and all his characters, and also a bee from a 1-second joke in his Jurassic Park 3 video. We mentioned that this is all about Doug again, and they say they'll switch the banner to different producers for days of the week when they post, Lewis on Mondays, etc. We point out there's more producers than days of the week. None of this matters because we know they won't do it, and they don't. Because Doug gets the most views on the site. No one else cares about you. When Mike is looking for a site designer, the first people he asks are the ones who designed the White House webpage. They quote him $50K, so he goes with a $100 template. Did he really ask the people who made the website for the White House? If so, that's hilarious. One of our requests for ages was to have a page that listed who we were and what our videos were about, instead of a massive drop-down menu of just names and pages of links with no descriptions. This was promised but never delivered. It does make sense to give like a About Me section for each producer. But again, what does that have to do with anything? They did ask us for show descriptions, which they lost at one point, and for us to make trailers for our shows. We did, but they were never posted. You know, this is actually kind of weird because, so I applied on the website probably 2009, 2010, and I didn't get on. Rob rejected me, and he basically said he couldn't give me feedback, but he passed me to someone else who could. It might have been Mike Ellis, I can't remember. Mike gave me this feedback and said, because my videos were back then. He was very honest, and he just said, you know, when he watches people's content, he gets a gauge, you know, he's able to gauge something from them, and he's able to kind of describe what kind of videos they make. And the videos that I sent him, I think it was the Home Alone 4 one with me and Jim the Movie Geek. And he said, the way I describe your videos are, they're angry and they swear a lot. He basically said there's not a lot of personality in them, which is absolutely valid. So it's weird that they told me that, but yet you're saying that they weren't looking or caring about you guys' personality. They set up an automatic scheduling system which almost immediately breaks and was never fixed. At this point, I stopped posting to the site for a month and they never notice. Nor did the audience. It took them 6 months to remove a cut-off drop shadow from the banner. So what? These are the most grievous accusations, ladies and gentlemen. They brought on a massive amount of people when they set up the new site, and it was a horrible time to do it because it flooded the front page every day with producers visitors were unfamiliar with. All of our views and comments instantly tanked. Fortunately, this was around when Blip Maker went away and most of us had switched to YouTube when we were building our audiences. How much more have you got, Alison? Now, man, she just... Oh my god. Sometime in 2013-2014, I am barely making ends meet with Blip's ad revenue, so I start to use more mid-rolls in my videos. Around this time, I go to Chicago to film a crossover on a talking cat with Doug in his studio. I mean, Blip was easy to make money off of, a lot easier than YouTube. Rob keeps interrupting to read off IMDb trivia for their things you didn't know about Ghostbusters video. No one pays us the courtesy of silence when we're trying to film. Doug has to continually tell them to be quiet and they act like we're not there. So you're defending Duggan. Okay. While I'm in Chicago, I film an episode of his talk show, Shut Up and Talk, which was never released since I was gone before it was edited together. They would sit on these interviews for months and months. Before filming, Doug offhandedly mentions one of the questions will be what I base my funny voice on. I tell him it's based on nothing, it's just me. When we begin filming, he again asks me what I base my voice on. I reiterate that it's not based on anything. I'm just doofy sometimes. He makes fun of me for using the word doofy because he's never heard it before and doesn't seem to believe me when I say I'm not imitating someone. The concept of comedy that is not directly ripping something off is baffling to him. That is a massive stretch because most people, Alison, have an inspiration somewhere. That's what he's asking. Maybe that's it, because most great ideas are inspired from something else, not ripped off. There's a huge difference. You know, even Disneyland, Walt Disney was inspired by other parks. It's a simple question. Oh, so sensitive, man. So sensitive. Outside of one or two, we did not go over the questions ahead of the interview. In the middle of the goofy questions, he asks me what the hardest thing I've been through was and how I got through it. It's very awkward. Why? I mean, you don't have to say something like, I don't know, really dark. You could say a bad breakup or something. Like, it's not that. It's just a general question. It's for you to be inspiring to your two viewers. At the end of the interview, Doug and his guests will improvise something as the credits play. I can't do improv. I'm doing pretty badly, so Doug says, "You'll never make it in this business," and that's how that ended. I mean, from what I've seen of Doug, that sounds like it's clearly a joke, and you've shown that you can't take one. I mean, Doug himself can't improvise. That's why the Bart's Nightmare Let's Play flopped. Michard waits until everyone leaves and I am alone on the Shut Up and Talk set to corner me and ask me why I have so many mid-rolls on my videos. I tell him to make enough money to live. He says my use of mid-rolls and Phelan's use are causing people to put on ad block and affecting their revenue. Their revenue was down because they killed off their flagship show and sunk a bunch of money into a useless game show. Fair point. He tells me people were complaining in the comments and he left the mean ones up as a hint to me instead of, telling me like the CEO of the company should. He also lies and tells me other producers were complaining to him, which the others confirmed was not true. This is very hostile and makes me uncomfortable and upset. I go to the bathroom and cry. After I pull myself together, the only person around is Doug, so I tell him what happened and how uncomfortable I was. He says he'll look into it. Shortly after, Mike and Doug call me on Skype to tell me they're limiting the number of mid-rolls we can use. I tell them I think they're overstepping their bounds. Doug says he disagrees. No mention is ever made of Mike's aggressive actions in Chicago. If that story is true, because Alison has a history of lying, and she has a history of making baseless claims with no evidence. But if this is true, then yes, Michelle a piece of shit. Doug would be complicit as well. But I feel like Doug can't do as much because Mike's Doug's boss, but I guess he's enabling him. Mike proceeds to give me tips on making more views, such as posting on specific days. I've been posting on Sundays for 3 years. I stopped doing a set schedule after that because I felt it didn't matter if no one noticed. He says I don't make enough videos, one a month. I was making 3 to 4 videos a month, including just completing a 2-hour retrospective. He didn't seem to think videos outside of my main show counted. 3 to 4 videos a month. I make 4 videos a week, bitch. Doug tells me I should just make more videos like his TV show vlogs because that's just his work ethic. You're complaining about Doug because he works a lot. I nearly quit right then and there. For at least a year I was debating when, not if, I would leave the site. Patreon comes along. A lot of folks are using it and this seems like a great way to make money and not have all the mid-rolls that annoy people. I set one up and put a link on the internal site to be added underneath my latest video. It does not appear there and as usual I have to contact them myself to find out what's up. I asked Mike why it wasn't there and he tells me they won't link to crowdfunding campaigns or e-begging. I try to explain that it's a payment for a service but he's already decided what it is. He eventually stops talking to me. Later on he apologizes for not responding, which is the only thing he's ever apologised for. Rob messages me and tells me adding Patreon along with mid-rolls is a slap in the face to fans. I ask about them promoting their Indiegogo, and Rob says that was executive authority. I also point out Mike J's Nerd Quest campaign was promoted. Suede makes a video weighing the pros and cons of Patreon, and they do not allow him to post it. After word gets out and people guilt them, they say we can do a bumper for Patreon on our videos. After I make one, they randomly tell us they have to be 30 seconds long. I post my minute-long video anyway because they never watch the content and don't notice. Again, this just seems like they didn't understand Patreon, and it was just something they didn't understand. It's not that deep, Alison! Late 2014, early 2015. Months later, I see they're posting links to Brad's Patreon. I post in the Skype chat asking when this was okayed and why they didn't tell us, and bring up Rob's slap to the face message. I ask for an apology. Mike says I didn't need to bring up what Rob said because they were still on the fence at the time, and I point out the issues I've mentioned in the bullets above. Things get heated, and Mike tells me we can discuss this in a private chat. This is a tactic he frequently uses so he could bully someone privately, so I told him no. Mike messages me separately asking if I have time for a call. I tell him no because I'm very heated and don't want to talk in that state of mind. A couple hours later, I am away from the computer filming and he and Doug message me for a call. After 15 minutes, Mike tells me because I'm ignoring them, they're taking me off the site. This is the quickest they've ever updated anything. I mean, if you look at the screenshots, it was hours. It wasn't 15 minutes, Alice. My exit post. Phelan, who was also planning on leaving soon, quits the site after that. Channel Awesome puts up a buried goodbye post, including the exits of Kyle and Andrew for different but also crummy reasons, which begins by saying they would like to announce we're leaving. They misspell Phelan's name. That's the end of his 6 years and my 5 years there. I mean, you can't really point out the lack of spelling because Lewis misspells Marzgurl's name in his own movie. Right, that is Alison Pregler. Some good points there. Now, you're a third of the doc, love. She's got some decent points. She's got some necessary things that she should point out. Fair enough. Now on to the comedy skid mark Marzgurl. This series of events covers my participation with Channel Awesome from my joining in September of 2008 to my voluntary leaving in September of 2017. Certainly other minor irritations and moments of hurt feelings have come up besides what is listed in these bullet points. Then they keep saying hurt feelings. You sound like 12-year-olds. However, to list those would likely be too many and too petty for this document. Oh, that's too petty! These are the biggest problems I ran into directly in my 9 years with Channel Awesome. In September of 2008, I participated in the Nostalgia Chick contest, a contest meant to pick a female critic to discuss topics that the Nostalgia Critic would not, based on media that was meant to be directed at women, and thus Doug Walker would not review. While I was not chosen as the first place winner of the contest, I was contacted in a Skype call along with Doug and Rob Walker, as well as Mike Machad, and notified that I, along with Chrissy Diggs, that chick with the goggle, was chosen as a runner-up and will be allowed to contribute content to the site. I was one of the earliest contributors to the site, and thus I was one of the ones who was asked to directly transfer my video files into the hands of Mike Machad, who would then upload my video to their Blip channel. For the first short while, my videos were not being hosted on any channel I had any control of. This was so that they would receive the advertising revenue from my video, and I was told that they would pay me out for the money earned on my videos. This never happened. Okay, that's shitty, because I'm guessing you were quite young, naive, didn't really understand it, know what you were doing, and they took advantage of you, and that's not okay. After Lewis, Linkara was added as a contributor to the site. He suggested that I start my own Blip channel as he was already using one for himself. I did just that and opened up a Blip channel of my own. When my next video was ready, rather than handing over my video directly, I told Mike Machad that I had a direct link to my video already uploaded on Blip. This made him furious and he angrily scolded me for creating my own Blip channel without express permission from him or any other Channel Awesome executive. Only after apologising profusely for not understanding that I was not allowed to do this and that I did it because Linkara was doing it, did he finally back off, and from this point forward I began contributing videos from my own upload links. I was never paid for any of my early contributions. Again, fair. Both valid criticisms if it's true. One of my earliest video series was titled Animation, a Children's Medium. Its intended purpose was to question whether or not animation was truly meant just for children as is often perceived, or if it has also commonly had a specific adult audience. I described this video to Mike Machad as being something like a history of animation, but I didn't intend for it to be called as such. I just gave it that description so that he had a clear understanding in a brief amount of words as to just what this project was. When the video was embedded into the site, it had been totally and completely mislabeled as a history of animation, when the title of my video even came up near the beginning of the video and was not called this. So I knew that Machad had not in fact watched my video. Son of a bitch! You're complaining Meaning that the CEO didn't watch your video. Did you tell him what the title should be? This led many viewers to be misled by the title and were angry directly at me for making a terrible video about the history of animation when that's not truly what the video was. When the subject came up in the That Guy with the Glasses forums, I explained to the people questioning this that there had been a miscommunication with Mashard about what the video was supposed to be and that I would make sure he understood what it was next time. This led to Mashard reaching out to me on Skype to once again completely lose his patience at me and text shout at me something about making him look bad and or incompetent when it wasn't his fault. Being 22 at the time and not knowing how to handle such a situation when I was so happy to have been made an addition to the team, I buckled and apologised profusely, saying this was another misunderstanding and that I meant that I was the one who communicated badly and that I wouldn't let it happen again. I went further and said that since I kept messing up in his eyes, maybe I wasn't truly the right choice for a contributor to That Guy with the Glasses. Only after making myself look like the fool to him did he back off and leave the topic be. I have since wondered if he was just satisfied that he had successfully made me feel ashamed. I hate to say it, because it's Marzgurl. But again, if this is all true. First of all, the title thing is blown way out of proportion. It's not that deep. I mean, yeah, it's not that deep. I nearly gave you the benefit of the doubt. The first bit, the payment, fine, but it's a title! It's a title to a video! Mike Mashard was frequently uncomfortable with the knowledge that for a brief while I was on decent communication terms with a select few members of JesuOtaku, and that I would sometimes write in their blog sections and post on their forums. He would reach out to me on Skype and tell me that he was not comfortable with my communications and would prefer if I stopped interacting with them altogether. His reasoning, he told me, was that he perceived JesuOtaku to be That Guy with the Glasses' direct rivals, and that he was concerned that JesuOtaku would steal me away as a contributor. They could have your love. I assured him that this was not going to happen, that I did not consider myself to be a video game content creator, and that I was satisfied being attached to Channel Awesome. While this satisfied Mashard for a brief while, I did not understand his concerns, especially since Doug Walker, the nostalgia critic, had been brought significant viewership by participating in crossovers with James Rolfe, the angry video game nerd, whose intellectual property at the time was under legal ownership of JesuOtaku. Partnership and interaction seemed to be working out well for them, and I was upset that Mashard addressed me with such vitriol during the situation. Yeah, that didn't make a lot of sense. But I don't understand why it's in the Google Doc! In 2009, JesuOtaku held their first JesuOtaku gaming convention in Dallas, Texas. I was excited about attending because prior to that there were next to no video game events within Texas where I lived at the time. Mashard once again addressed me and suggested that it would be a bad idea for me to attend. I had to reassure him once more that I would not be trading my Channel Awesome loyalty just because I wanted to attend a video game convention. In 2010, I participated in the next JesuOtaku gaming convention as a general staff member, typically asked to stand next to doors and check members for their badges. This year, Noah Antweiler, Spoonie, was a guest at the convention. I told him that Mashard had a previous history of being upset with me for communicating with JesuOtaku, which is when he told me that he was also hearing Mashard's upset tone with him for agreeing to be at SGC. Well, doesn't that go against your sexist thing then? I thought he bullied women, now all of a sudden he had an issue with Noah doing it as well. Make up your mind! All of these interactions with Mike Mashard made me very nervous about doing something wrong, and I felt like there was always a target on my back or that someone was looking for a reason to drop me as a contributor from the site. Good! Sorry, I said I wouldn't be biased, but your videos are so Rather than having to put up with the anxiety of being told I did something wrong when I had no idea I was doing anything wrong, I began to largely pull away not only from communicating with Mike Mashard, but with anyone on the site at all. I kept to myself for the next several years, did not want to participate in anyone else's drama, and just continued releasing my videos on my own as best as I could. This is the thing, Marzgurl also has a history of lying, so considering she said that no one wanted my help, even though she constantly encouraged my videos and asked for more, she claimed that we weren't even, Marzgurl and I used to talk a lot. 2019, we were supposed to do a crossover of Death Note. She just didn't have time. Get out of here, liar, man. So it's hard to take these things seriously. My interactions with Mashard had also made me very gun-shy about participating in Skype or being available on Skype in any capacity, and I feared logging on and seeing some new angry message from Mashard. I would sometimes not log into Skype for months at a time. This would begin to cause communication problems when site management would decide that, rather than give us promised communication through either monthly emails or through our internal scheduling site, they would instead put all contributors into one large Skype chat room and use that chat room to deliver important messages to us. I would often miss large, seemingly important notifications due to this, and despite them having multiple email addresses of mine and my phone number, they never utilised it. It's a valid point, but you've now repeated it twice on two people's different sections. Many of us were expected to make our own costumes for the anniversary films, myself included. In most instances, we were not paid for the creation of these costumes, if we were deemed capable of making or bringing them with us. Again, you didn't have to make it. I don't understand. You cannot be in it. You cannot... Before the filming of To Boldly Flee, I was asked initially to make a costume for Leela from Futurama. Luckily, I did not make it far in the construction of this costume because I received an email from Doug saying that I needed to make a costume for Major Kusanagi from Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, and a very specific outfit of hers. There was only a couple of weeks left before the shooting of the movie, and I had to make some expensive and fast purchases to throw it together in time. Yep, but again, didn't have to do it. You're blaming Channel Awesome for asking you to do something, and you doing it. You're grown adults at this point, man. We were told that if we made our costumes ourselves during To Boldly Flee, they would pay us for the construction of the costume if we met two conditions. One, we had to provide receipts for the materials used to make the costume, and two, we had to turn our costumes over to Channel Awesome. I was frustrated with this idea and decided I wanted to keep the Major Kusanagi costume for myself. It meant taking a financial loss, but I was not happy that I would have to hand over a costume that I had to both make and wear myself. Fair point! As mentioned elsewhere, the death of the nostalgia critic and the ending of his character and review series was written into the script of To Boldly Flee. Many people did not know that this was going to be happening until they read the script. Many others did not understand until filming got underway, and from my discussions with other content creators, no one had a clear idea of what they were supposed to do with the content creation once this was loaded on a Channel Awesome and the rest of the internet found out Doug was making this decision. This is why this is so many pages. It's just from you repeating the same shit. After we had finished filming during the week of To Boldly Flee, a wrap party was held at a pub nearby the hotel we'd been lodged at. We paid for our own meals. What? This is outrageous! Did you hear that, everybody? They had to pay for their own meals. These grown adults had to pay for their own meals. Pray for them! Pray! They had to pay for their own food! Just go down the shop, get a meal deal. What's the big deal? With my movie, I am feeding the cast, right? First of all, they fed you on all of the shoots of all of the movies. But secondly, my cast is just me and maybe 3 other people. Doug's got about 52 people he's got to feed. At this party, Doug Walker handed out individually addressed letters to each member of the cast that was there, which seemed like a nice enough gesture, but the finality of the letters indicated that Doug did not intend to continue to create anniversary videos, nor did he intend to utilise us again. It was obvious that we were considered obsolete to him at this point, and that perhaps we were just expected to go on about our own lives without him, not considering the consequences for everyone for what he was about to do. But it's his show! If you're all relying on Doug, that's your fault! It's not his fault that you're This is essentially saying we need Doug and he wanted to try something else, and yes, what he tried was crap. Doug, carry on doing this show forever. We need you! During the filming of To Boldly Flee, several contributors were called down during a specific scene where the entire cast was expected to be knocked out and having fallen asleep on the floor. They called down nearly the entire cast by name except for me. Yeah, there's a reason. Later on, they needed us all back for the scene in which we all woke up, and this time they included me. I informed Rob Walker that this was going to look strange because I was not in the initial scene where they filmed everyone falling asleep. Rob responded to this by saying, oh well, plot hole, and then proceeded to laugh it off. I laughed with him at the time, but truth be told, I was saddened by this. Really? First of all, who the watched that scene and were like, Marzgurl wasn't there before? Secondly, yeah, it's a bit incompetent, but they got like 40 cast members. It's not that deep. It's just a mistake. And it's like, plot hole. They can like theoretically get away with anything in that story because of the plot hole element. Our internal website is where we would schedule our video content. I would schedule my videos there much like everyone else and leave notes about the name of my video, the link to my title card, the link to the video itself, the description of the video, and my contact information, phone number and Skype username. I would often leave extra notes if there was anything important I needed the person doing the scheduling to know. These notes were never read, always ignored. For example, I would have a request review because I take requests from our Patreon contributors as a reward tier for them. So the title of a review might be Request Review, The Transformers the Movie, or Request Review, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. You know, Cinematic Venom reviewed that. You should go watch it, fantastic. These reviews would never be called this. Instead, they would be titled Marzgurl, The Transformers the Movie, or Marzgurl, Batman, Mask of the Phantasm. I repeatedly left notes for the schedulers to correct these titles or to please remember to properly title my videos on the website. They refused to do this properly. Without fail, the names of my videos were always wrong on channelawesome.com. There's people in the Middle East getting blasted to pieces. There's people starving, dying in droughts. And these people are complaining that the titles of their videos are not correct. Usually when a video is posted, it is also cross-posted across various social media platforms, specifically Twitter and Facebook. Frequently, I would wait for channelawesome.com to update so that I could then retweet their tweet about my video or share their Facebook post about my video to my personal and public Facebook pages. Frequently, not always but frequently, my videos would not show up in the social media feeds along with the other posts for the day. This happened slightly less frequently on Twitter but more frequently on Facebook. It felt like management was commonly attempting to make me feel invisible to make me want to quit on my own accord rather than be fired and make a big deal out of it that would get them into hot water publicly. Yeah, because the public would be outraged if Marzgurl was fired. The public have been very nice to you, haven't they, Kaylyn? As an aside to all of this, there was a weekly producer spotlight that was meant to feature a new producer on the front page every week. I was never featured, nor was I on the schedule at all in the first place. Maybe your videos suck. I've been considering my exit from Channel Awesome for many years, but only stayed as long as I did because I had a manager outside of Channel Awesome for some time who scheduled my convention appearances for me. You had a manager? This manager suggested that he understood how bad Channel Awesome was, but if I wanted to keep getting con appearances, he needed me to stay, because still being associated with Channel Awesome as a brand and Doug Walker as the nostalgia critic was good for me to continue to get work. He told me to consider waiting until I reached 10,000 YouTube subscribers and only then to consider getting out on my own. See, even he knows that you need Doug. I initially agreed with my manager, but then decided that I would also add in the idea of waiting until my 10-year anniversary and leaving then, depending on which one of those two things happened first. Eventually, I decided I just couldn't wait any longer, and I left on my 9-year anniversary with Channel Awesome in September of 2017. I can no longer idly stand by and watch others and myself be affected by their poor management and direct abuse to many of my friends. I left a farewell song in the Channel Awesome group Skype chat and then removed myself from the conversation. Within a single hour of my removing myself from the group chat, all of my content had been removed from the site. Unlike previous contributors who had received pleasant farewell messages from the administrators, no such farewell message was delivered to me, a contributor who had been there longer than 90% of their team and had been in every single anniversary movie. This was also how others were treated who were there either as long as me or a little longer than me, such as Linkara and Suede. Yeah? It's crap that they removed you so quickly, and they should have done more. They should have put out a statement, even though your videos suck. Holly Brown! Now this is an interesting one because I actually talked to Holly quite a bit the past few months and I get along really well with Holly. We've cleared the air. The thing is, these comments, she didn't even put in. Holly didn't directly contribute to this Google document. Someone took her statements from Twitter and just put them in here. Which is really funny when you think about it. I was HR for the company. They barely listened to me. 5% of the time maybe. That's probably generous. In general, only when production was falling behind on an anniversary and they needed advice from someone who actually got a degree in directing and stage management. Mike Michaud is not the sole owner of Channel Awesome, but does own the Nostalgia Critic IP. He is, last I knew, the majority shareholder. Doug and Rob did not know him until he, Mike Ellis and Bargo approached them to make the site, and they liked having someone else in charge. Mike Ellis was the one who originally built the site. I believe he did site updates. He did most of the day-to-day operations. None of us had any clue what Michaud did. I can verify that even people who think they're cool in the eyes of management have had talked about them. I don't know who that's referring to, considering there's only like a handful of people left in Channel Awesome. They never understand social media. They were happy with their little corner of the internet. That's why Punky Val ran the official Twitter for so long. They didn't think we needed social. Even looking now, you can see they don't get it. Well, I mean, things have changed now. They're actually, Channel Awesome have gotten a lot better with the social medias. So I don't know who runs it, but whoever it does, they've actually got a lot better with it. I was not informed of everything that went on despite being part of management. For instance, I was never in on Channel Awesome Premium and had no idea what it was. Channel Awesome Premium sounds like a porn site. Rules were not enforced equally for everyone. There is one person still on the site who didn't post for months, but they didn't want to drop despite the minimum video per month requirement. At this point, who would that be? Guru Larry? The site lost a bunch of stuff in 2010 or 2011 because it only existed on a single drive. I mean, I guess I don't think that's worth including. Yeah, slightly incompetent. I was also part of that guy with the glasses failed spin-off site Bar Fiesta. I don't even know what this is. I've never heard of this. I actually set up an interview and tour with a brewery. We got some amazing coverage and then they only made videos of my ex being a dork. The story of the inebriati is a little convoluted. We were literally just a group of friends who watched anime together and decided to brew beer. When Michaud came up with the Bar Fiesta idea, they approached us about creating content because Rob was in our group. The idea was we were going to review beers, go to beer festivals, etc. But of course we ended up with some kind of storyline that was never followed up on. Because that guy with the glasses started getting more traction and Rob was the one making our videos. That's my super brief history as a producer with Channel Awesome. I get along really well with Holly. And I think Holly's great. And I actually think it's a massive shame, you know. And I'm not going to divulge things that I spoke about privately, but I think it's a shame that something couldn't be, you know, rekindled there, because I only know what I've been told and what was behind the scenes of the movies. And I just think the stuff with Suburban Nights, and Holly did so much great stuff for the company. I think it's a real shame that that's kind of a you know, friendship or business relationship that couldn't be rekindled. Mike Ellis was upset that I would not pursue a relationship with him. He was married, and that I brought certain severe mismanagement legal boundary here to light. In a previous meeting, there was nearly a fist fight between him and Mashad. I'm sad that I probably threw away the handwritten notes that were taken when Ellis was threatening to fire me. There were some real gems in there. Yeah, so Mike Ellis, apparently a creep. I do believe this. There's been, I mean, to be fair, I also believe the stuff about Mashad being a dick. There's just so many reports. So Alison had a few valid points. Kaylyn had like one, I think. I think the person with the most genuine grievances in this, and it's not just because I talked to her a lot, is Holly. All completely valid. Mike Ellis got fired, and Channel Awesome put me in a safe house for a few days because they were concerned he would come after me. Nothing was more strange than being escorted to my house with a group of guys with baseball bats and a sword so I could pack. Pretty sure I even grabbed a golf club to be able to go up to my bedroom. We all got pepper spray after that. To inject a bit of humour in the horror, I wish I could remember who carried the sword. I want to say Doug, but I'm pretty sure it belonged to Rob. On the other hand, I'm pretty sure it was Doug who tested the pepper spray by spraying it into the kitchen sink. It didn't go well. See, I was confused when I first read this, because I was like, is this painting Channel Awesome as the bad guys, though? Because this is in a Google Doc defaming Channel Awesome. This section is saying, Channel Awesome were protecting me against a sexual predator. Let me tell you about the fury I felt when they called me on the way to Doug and Rob's house to tell me we were scrapping Suburban Nights. Them. No one is going to want to finish it. Me. Why don't we ask them? I know for certain they want to finish this. Thankfully, I got them to at least agree to ask, and then called the producers to let them know what was up. I think this is probably all covered in the DVD extras. And that's why I think, you're amazing, Holly. Love you. That's going to be a meme. Cinematic Venom and Holly. How times change. I came to work on To Boldly Flee after surgery. The day I wasn't on set, I still gave them notes based on all the issues I heard about. After that, the only time I missed filming was when I had to go get the drain taken out of my abdomen. I don't think I ever received a final script to work from. I wasn't even informed about the last anniversary I was there for, the Uncanny Valley. That's why I only worked on Matt's project. I was not invited to the Channel Awesome official one. I still don't have a copy of it. I can testify as well. Holly's got a lot of health problems. So yeah, that's all true. I was the only person asked to work every day of the year. I worked through weekends, holidays, vacations, days, I had surgery, everything. Unless I could beg Mashad to do the daily site update for me, I worked. I requested multiple times to be able to pre-schedule the update and was always told no. Hell, I once took a meeting on Christmas. I missed events with my friends for years because they insisted on an evening upload time. Mashad was the only person other than me who knew how to update the site. There is literally no reason someone needs to sit and code for a daily update at the time of the update. Finally, they moved the update time, but they still wouldn't let me pre-schedule it. Do you know how hard it is to do a daily update at an exact time if you happen to have a doctor's appointment or a dentist visit in the Chicago area? It became such a long-running joke in my family that I was always working that my dad and his wife were stunned the first time I visited them and didn't even pack my computer. The day before I was let go, I had surgery, came home and did the update. The next day, I was asked to drive to the studio against doctor's orders to be told I was no longer employed. Anyone else just want to give Holly a hug? I know I said, I really like Holly, and this is what I mean by a genuine grievance, and I think this is f***ed up. I think this is disgusting. I think Holly is definitely owed an apology. I was not provided with a reason I was let go. They didn't need to because Illinois is an at-will state. I think they had been preparing for it for a while because we had just signed contracts for the first time only a month or so prior. I assumed letting me have the surgery was a gift, but I would have liked a day to recover first. They had me sign another contract after I was fired because if I didn't sign, I wouldn't receive severance pay. This contract would bar me from working in the industry for 3 years. I could not be paid to consult, run a site, anything. My involvement with Nerdvice and Circle Plus couldn't make me money. I was scared of pursuing anything legal against them because I was chronically ill, unemployed, and they had recently accumulated $90,000 after their Indiegogo campaign. Doug was the deciding vote on my being employed. My life was ruined. I lost all my friends. I had to leave Chicago. I didn't have a job, nor could I get one if you Googled me. It was rough for several years. I've really worked hard to make things better for myself though, and I've been published on the Mary Sue and was a guest on BBC NewsHour. And that's all of Holly's section, and I think it's all valid, all warranted. Yeah, you weren't expecting this, were you? In 2025. Next, oh God. I'm just going with an open mind. I joined up with the site when I had very few reviews, maybe 5 or 6. My meeting with Mike Machad was at night, or rather very early in the morning. I'd say around 3 or 4 a.m. Central Time. Well, I admit in hindsight it was unprofessional for that to be the case. It wasn't really a problem for me then due to an erratic sleep schedule. Why put it in the doc then? After informing me that I was on the site and they enjoyed my early work, that shouldn't have been your first red flag, I was told of some of the plans for the future of that guy with the glasses. If I recall correctly, even then the plan was to eventually rebrand it as Channel Awesome so that the focus wasn't strictly on Doug Walker's work. How'd that work out for you? Specifically, the plan was to break the site into various satellite websites. The central one for movie and TV reviews, one focused on video games, and one focused on comics and animation, including anime and manga. While I don't think the name Blistered Thumbs existed yet for the video game site, there was definitely no name yet for the comics and animation site. If my memory can be trusted, even back then, Machad was suggesting I could head up that satellite for comics and animation, referred to as Inked Reality from here on out for the sake of simplicity. The way he described these plans, it seemed like they would be happening in the near future. Since I was young, eager, and enthusiastic about the idea of managing a collection of sites, I started looking for talent. I put together a contest for people to submit their work and made it a private video on Blip so he could review the idea and let me know when we'd be ready to launch. That time never came, although some change at Blip at one point a few years later released every private video to the public, confusing 1 or 2 people who found the video later. Okay. While we later came up with the Inked Reality name while spitballing a few ideas, there wasn't really any attempts to advance it at any point. The Inked Reality eye catch featured at the end of several videos came from Team 4-star member Masako X, who was also doing videos for the site by that point. He liked the idea of a satellite website as well and did the eye catch on his own initiative. While Machad approved of said eye catch, there still was never any momentum to move the idea of a satellite site for Inked Reality forward, nor any discussion of me potentially running it or anything of the sort. After Blistered Thumbs launched, I did assume that Inked Reality would actually follow at some point. I was unaware of the difficulties Blistered Thumbs was facing until after the fact. By this point, I really had no desire to run Inked Reality because of the amount of time and energy I was putting into my own show. But it didn't seem to matter because as far as I know, there wasn't any other momentum for launching Inked Reality anyway. Eventually, Blistered Thumbs closed and I came to realise that not only was Inked Reality likely never going to happen, but that the eye catch was promoting a thing that did not exist, would not exist, and even if it did, was promoting a website that was slowly losing interest in its 5 producers. I commissioned Masako X to design a new eye catch for my videos that are still used today. What was the point of that whole section? For a long while, the Channel Awesome forums only had one moderator, Matthew Buck, aka Film Brain. While others like Mike Machad had administrative access, they did not handle any day-to-day moderation in the forums. This grew to be an increasing problem as the site's popularity expanded. More people coming on at all hours of the day, and some people acting inappropriately or a growing number of bots needed more active moderation to be combated. However, despite several pleas, these requests went unanswered for a time. At one point, I commented on the forum about the lack of moderators and how disappointed I was in that. Unceremoniously and without asking if it was a job I wanted, I was made one of the moderators. You poor thing, there. Despite my misgivings about being given such a role, I tried to do the best I could to answer incident reports and help Matthew, but both of us were active producers on the site and trying to do our own shows. The fact that Mike thought that I would be the one to solve these woes shows a disregard for the problems facing the forums and for the lives of the people who were told to fix them. Eventually we convinced them to bring on Dodger of Zion to also act as a moderator, but that was it. I became less actively involved in the forums, which changed anyway during the site transition, so I no longer received reports. The fact that they were unwilling to bring on anyone with seasoned moderator experience from the get-go, relying instead on a producer who was doing his own show and was equally not allowed to moderate his own forum section because of an understandable conflict of interest there, who didn't even want the job, is incredibly unprofessional given their desires for expansion. Yes, I suppose it is. I just don't care. It's a forum. You're a 30-year-old man talking about a website for... Someone married you. Several people left Channel Awesome at roughly the same time. Some did so voluntarily, but 2 in particular did not. Alison, Pregler and Phelan Porteous. While the others, Lindsay, Ellis, Kyle Corcoran and Andrew Dickman, did so of their own volition, citing various reasons, the other 2 were different. There was a Skype chat that we used to contact the higher-ups and discuss business matters that were relevant to all of the producers. It became the fastest method for distributing information for most producers, simply because any previous attempts at distributing information had proved unsuccessful or were ignored. You know what, for writers, you all repeat things in the same sentence. You put distributing information, people put Machad twice in the same sentence. You're all writers. Email, direct messaging, Mike Michaud, etc. The business chat was it. This is the third time they point this out. When Alison and Phelan left because of the incidents over Patreon, Michaud and Rob Walker organised calls to each of the producers. I believe they were trying to assuage people's concerns about the site or directly answer questions to people. In the wake of what had happened, I knew there was a general feeling that the site was no longer in its glory days and that the more optimistic sense of togetherness the site had engendered was going away. Despite my outrage at what had happened, I decided it would be best to try to fix things, particularly for the new producers who had only more recently signed on. After all, many of them wanted to be on the site because it involved working with other producers they had admired, and I didn't want to give them the impression the ship was sinking. I outlined a few complaints I had for the management as well as several ideas I had for improving the site. These ideas included improved communication with producers, a dedicated social media person, have the social media link on the sidebar of the site promoting not just Doug's work but various producers, reduced wasteful spending, opening the Channel Awesome studio to be rented by other video producers, less charity drives where people are flown out, etc. Bring back the anniversary movies, in particular paying for them through the use of crowdfunding campaigns. The site itself had had a successful campaign and other producers had also launched successful campaigns for independent projects. Why would you want to bring back the movies that you all were miserable making? Doesn't make sense. You said you were all miserable. We want more of that. A larger, more deliberate presence at conventions to promote the site. Release information on what the higher-ups at the company do, since there was a perception that Mike Michaud didn't actually do anything at the company other than issue orders. An overhaul of the comment system. Reduce the amount of advertisements on the site, or at least reorganise the sidebars to promote producers or new videos so it's the first thing people see instead of the ads. All of these ideas were rejected, save for doing more anniversary movies, although they never truly came to pass aside for the 10th anniversary. The thing repeated over and over in response to each of these ideas was, it's our site, we'll do what we want. It's true. You don't have to be on the site, Lewis. You had your own channel. This is a recurring thing with Linkara. You'll see this, that he will present things and then have a tantrum when he doesn't get his way. Hey, here's a list. Here's a list. No. The final point I made to him was that in light of what had happened with Alison's firing, I told Mike point blank that the incident had made me lose respect for him. His answer was a terse, okay. What the f*** else was he meant to say? Did you expect him to cry? Decided to make my own movie and fashioning it off of the style of the Channel Awesome anniversary movies, which you hated. With other video producers in it, I launched a successful crowdfunding campaign and produced my own film for my web series. During production, as my assistant director and I worked to reduce costs for our budget, I realised that the studio space we needed could be made available by using the Channel Awesome studio. The studio I went with charged $1,000 per day for the use of their space. After 10 days, that naturally came out to $10,000 of a $60,000 budget just for that space. In addition, because of the close proximity of the studio to 3 of the actors, costs could be further reduced by not having to fly them out to Minnesota. I brought this information in my request to Mike Michaud and Rob Walker. Rob was amenable to the idea, but Michaud flat out refused. His reasoning was thus: it would interrupt the production of the Nostalgia Critic. Someone would need to be with us to supervise us. I would have to get insurance to protect against damage to the studio. These points are all ridiculous for a number of reasons. While production of the Nostalgia Critic could have been impacted, we would have been happy to spend some money to rent the space and make up for any lost revenue. The idea was to reduce our own costs, not spend nothing at all. In addition, not every Nostalgia Critic episode requires the use of the studio space. Simpler, less grandiose episodes could be made. Plus, Doug had done Nostalgia Critic for 5 years before without the use of the studio and could simply film somewhere else in a manner that did not interrupt his video production. The thing with this is, Lewis, it's their studio. Let me use the studio. No. Hey! Yeah! Yeah! They're paying for it. It's their studio. They can say no. Why are you crying that they're not letting you now? You're in your 30s, nearly 40s. The idea that we would need to be supervised is insulting. We are all grown adults and do not require someone watching us at all times. It conveyed an idea that we were untrustworthy and could not act responsibly. It's a legal thing, man. This is standard. I once had to get permission from council to film. It was like a construction site, but I used to go to school on the ground. And I filmed a music video that never actually got released. But I filmed on the ground and I had to get permission. And obviously they had a man stand there and wait with us. Of course he had to be there. What do you mean? It's standard. What? The studio we did end up renting did not see any need to supervise us. The people who owned and worked in the studio normally simply staying in the office area to provide any assistance that we requested. Well, that's what he means. They're in the building. They're not going to stand there holding your hand. The insurance request was not unreasonable. In fact, I ended up having to get insurance for the studio we did rent. However, Michaud listed this fact as a reason why we couldn't use the studio. That's especially confusing since if he truly felt we were not that responsible enough to use the space, then surely getting the insurance would cover any potential risk. Fair point, but again, he's allowed to say no, Lewis. To be fair, it is entirely likely that using the studio would not have been a viable solution anyway, since the movie involved complicated sets that would need to be transported down from Minnesota at a great cost of time and labour, with no way to transport them back again for later use. So why are you complaining? However, the fact that Michaud was not even willing to humour the idea or discuss it any further demonstrated an unwillingness to work with us, compromise or negotiate to make things easier. Next! Someone I do like. Suede. He's a cool guy. All my statements are only in regards to events I was directly involved in. Though I wasn't affected as directly as many of the others, there are many instances where I felt the producers were negligent and unprofessional without any attempt at reconciliation or apology unless forced to. The earliest instance I can remember of something being off is during filming of Suburban Nights, where producers were mocked for wanting craft services and even water on set. Most of us were not being paid, and the organisers not just refusing but scoffing at the idea of fulfilling basic cast and crew needs was concerning. Again, this might be true. I like Suede. Don't come at me, Will. They said that in Kikasia, they didn't have water on set until they brought it up. And then they did. So I'd imagine that they would have had it on set for Suburban Nights. But even then, you're still grown adults. Yes, it's a bit unprofessional. Just go get a drink from the shop. I wasn't there for To Boldly Flee, so I can't comment on that experience. However, I was greatly concerned when it was revealed to me that Doug Walker had decided to retire the Nostalgia Critic character in it, as well as strongly imply that the other producers would do the same with their personas. How many times are you all going to repeat this? This was a massive change-up that could have affected the income for all the producers using the site. No. And now they're going to have to get a job! Including those such as myself who relied on blip revenue to support a family. Most visitors to the site did so solely from loyalty to the Nostalgia Critic, and with a radically different format thrust forward with demo reel, many viewers were left unimpressed. This should have been put forward to those dependent on the NC's traffic so that we could offer alternatives or even just brace ourselves, but nothing. Hey guys, just letting you know, this is Doug's upload schedule. Just letting you know everything Doug's doing. He's having breakfast this day, okay? He's going to get his dry cleaning on this day. The majority of the producers were upset and got together over several drafts to put forward a list of grievances and suggestions. Both this list and the reactions are available elsewhere, but suffice it to say, apart from spotlighting producers on the site, almost all of it was ignored. Again, okay, fair play, they have communicated and they weren't listened to. I was one of the early adopters of Patreon and made a video not advertising it but discussing its pros and cons. As far as I'm aware, the Channel Awesome response to this was to tell other producers not to advertise their Patreons in their videos as it gives off the impression of e-begging. This was after they told us not to use more than one mid-roll ad on blip per video to avoid encouraging site visitors to use ad block. This left many wondering how they were going to support themselves. Channel Awesome eventually relented after near unanimous outcry. Yeah, again, I think this was just when Patreon came along, a lot of people saw it as e-begging, just like Kickstarter and Indiegogo were. I just think it was ignorance. When I first left the site for a 2-year hiatus, the entire site got together for a farewell video. When Noah left, disregarding all other aspects, there was a heartfelt text post. When Linkara and I left, our archive was deleted and people had to ask where we went. It's almost understandable that they would focus more on what they can directly control, but the lack of acknowledgement, apology, or any kind of transparency regarding their past mistakes suggests to me that they simply don't care about those not directly under their umbrella. If that is the case and they have not made any statements indicating otherwise as of writing, there's no longer any reason for me to be loyal to them. Fair point. Again, should have made a statement. Jacob Chapman, who was Jesu in To Boldly Flee, I believe. Michaud was going to have me fired for criticising the site. I told him that no, I would quit on my own terms in my own time, or else I would go public with the chat logs I had of their abuse. They were 100% going to fire me for basically saying the site had issues in public at all, but they crumpled like wet cardboard when I told them I wasn't going to happen without me publicly destroying their reputations as much as I could though. And that's their only contribution to the doc. There's abuse! But I'm not telling you what it is. So what was the point in putting that in there? Benzo. I like Benzo. At no point ever was I told my vid archive would not transfer from that guy with the glasses to Channel Awesome, or that I was let go, or something. Which happened the years I published a feature-length movie and a TV series, albeit in French but subtitled. Guess I burned my bridge when notified Mike Michaud he shouldn't be selling my girlfriend's artwork as limited prints without giving her a share, since the shirt she got in exchange back when she did the Suburban Nights art was simply for the DVD and not ad vitam rights to sell her art. I found my fortune elsewhere, but management was indeed a farce at Channel Awesome. This at least taught me to never slave away for free no matter what exposure I would get. Looking back, this was disrespectful regardless of how much I owe that guy with the glasses. Yeah, that is a valid point. Selling his girlfriend's artwork. Douchey. Chaos D1, what you got? Witnessed several contributors get unceremoniously removed from the site after the Blistered Thumbs Channel Awesome merger without directly informing any of them. Had to personally inform one of them myself. Had a sudden 1 video per month policy implemented on us, which was later changed to a 2 video per month policy. Enforcement of this rule seemed random and arbitrary, so your mad that they're asking you to work. Removed from schedule access after being 1 day late with a video due to wife's medical emergencies, despite having provided 4 videos to the site in the previous month, and never having missed a regularly scheduled post for over 5 years. Again, yeah, if that's true, f*** 'em. When discussing reinstatement with Greg, was told to wait a few days before reinstating me and claiming it was my one strike, only to receive a message several days later via Skype telling me, unfortunately we are going to part ways with you, without discussing anything with me beforehand. When lamenting the sudden change, was shown a photo of my Twitter account where I asked if anyone still watched me on Channel Awesome, as I was recently unlisted, and Greg thought I posted the message out of spite after talking with him and being told to wait, despite it having been posted hours before our conversation. My first and only interaction with Doug was after the massive cameo scene into Boldly Flee, where we all gave the NCR spirit bomb by having all us plebeian producers listing off plot holes in films. I sent in a short scene where I honestly couldn't think of anything, but just appeared on camera saying Birdemic. Just Birdemic. I sent in the clip the appropriate way pretty early on and was told they received it. When I saw the final episode part of To Boldly Flee and that scene came on, I wasn't in it at all. I brought this up to someone and somehow was told to talk to Doug about it. I'm pretty sure he just nice proofreading guys, some lip service about adding it back in and just forgetting. Yeah, happens. When I asked him about retiring the NC, I got a bit of an answer, but I didn't hesitate to throw him some subtle shade by saying, love, luck and lollipops before signing off. I figured it was a reference he wouldn't appreciate. Oh, you showed him. Oh, and when the scene was added back in, it was a blink and you'll miss it half-second appearance of me just yelling Birdemic. How did you ever recover from that abuse? Dr. Gonzo! We all know him. My part of the Channel Awesome drama is probably a bit longer running than most. It wasn't limited to one single incident, not even a group of smaller ones. It was one long continuous torture session perpetrated by a man who I am convinced has no soul, no conscience, and I'd be very surprised indeed to find out he had a heart. It's also not one you heard a lot about while it was happening. This was the result of a social isolation imposed on me, if rumour is to be believed by design. First by a fellow contributor, and then by the aforementioned soulless wretch. Ooh. Okay, let's see what you got. Like any good story, mine starts at the beginning. The literal beginning. If Channel Awesome had a book of Genesis, I was there to see it written. I was one of the first contributors brought onto the site, based on my Gaming Hall of Fame blogs. I was offered the position of article writer by Mike Michaud and I accepted. Also present for this job offer was one Daniel, that Aussie guy Rizzo, or Aussie as we refer to him casually. Also brought onto the team as article writer was my friend Christy Cat Thompson, who started writing blogs there at my urging. For the first few months, things were great. Every evening, a massive Skype call would be conducted by Chris Rolo T. Larios and Sean Hope within Chaos Fausz, and we would all join in. I probably butchered those pronunciations, sorry. I became friends with Chris and Sean as well as with Linkara, Chrissy Goggles Diggs, Kaylyn Marzgurl Saucedo, Benjamin Benzai Daniel, Patrick Coldguy Burndon, and most of the crew from the first year. There were those I clashed with. Spoonie and I never saw eye to eye, and Angry Joe and I never got on. But that was because of personality differences with the former, and the latter was due to events which will be relayed here. Beyond those two, I got along with most everyone on the team, and we all came to be, I thought, really good friends. This didn't last. Shortly after the establishment of Blistered Thumbs is when things went to hell for me. I began to notice that members of the community who I'd been friends with before were less and less likely to answer my messages, whether if they were to offer them guest spots on the podcast or just to have a friendly chat. Eventually, nobody would return my messages. Eventually, the only reliable contact I had within Channel Awesome was Mike Birdman Dodd, who had a line to Channel Awesome management, as well as regular contact with members of the producer community. He relayed to me a rumour that Michaud had told other producers on the site that I was trouble and that they were to keep contact with me to a minimum. I cannot verify the truth of this rumour, and even Dodd himself admitted that he couldn't say for sure if the rumour was true. If it was true, however, then it was a deliberate abuse tactic on Michaud's part to isolate me from the rest of the Channel Awesome community. And it is in this isolation that I think led in large part to what would follow in my time with Channel Awesome. Were you just very lonely? It's just people aren't messaging you back. I get it, like you've joined this big community and no one's responding, but do you have no one in your actual life? I don't want to be mean, but come on. We continued to produce Nerd to the Third Power, hereafter referred to as N3, and brought in additional team members. We would produce a video version of the podcast to go on the site, as well as an MP3 download on the company FTP server for people to download and listen to. At the start, we had access to our viewership numbers via counters on the website, but these were eventually removed. When I asked Michaud for our subsequent numbers after the disappearance to gauge performance, I was consistently ignored until one time when I got a reply to the effect of, "Stop asking for your numbers. They suck anyway because nobody comes here to listen to you." This would become the lion's share of how any contact between me and Channel Awesome management. How any contact between you and Channel Awesome management what? No one proofread this shit. Mashard would randomly message me and tell me something to the effect of, your numbers are low, get them up or you'll be booted from the site. Yet he would not tell me what our numbers were or what total we needed to get. In addition, my show and all the other podcasts were buried at the bottom of the then exceptionally overcrowded front page where nobody could find us unless they scrolled all the way to the bottom. We would always be last on the new content slider on the front page and would only remain on said slider for one day as it would be removed the next day. Meanwhile, everything else that came out the same day we did was still there. The side panel slider was for many months one slot short of the number of shows meant to premiere on any given day. So unless the schedule for that day wasn't completely full, which it seldomly wasn't completely full, we wouldn't appear on that side panel at all. Okay, it is douchey to not give you the numbers, but if you're right at the bottom, it might just be because you got the least amount of views. That is a possibility, but if they're not showing you the views, then you don't know, and it might just be that they're pushing you to the bottom. We would schedule our shows months in advance. Hey, my kind of guy! On numerous occasions, we would schedule an episode, and then the day it was supposed to go out, we would find out that our show had been replaced with something else. Typically, this was a Linkara, Joe, or Spoonie vid, or a special vid put out by the site management. At no point would we receive any warning the show was being replaced, and we would have to reschedule the episode ourselves. And because at this point the schedule was full up months in advance, that meant it would have to be scheduled 3 or 4 months down the line. The worst this got was in 1 year it happened 3 times, so every episode that came out that year would actually be 3 or 4 weeks old because we'd been preempted so much. This happened mainly when Mashard was doing the site updates, but it also happened on 2 occasions when Holly Brown was doing the site updates, although when she preempted us she would put our show up on the next day's rotation with proper placing on the new content slider and side panel. There were also a number of occasions where I would find out that our entire rotation of episodes on the back-end site were deleted off the calendar. The channel also have admitted that there was communication, and I get it, like, if they're not putting your videos in the right places and stuff, you're not, that's the main part where you're getting your views. So I get it. I do get it. Because it's not as easy as why you just leave the site because that's your main viewership. On numerous occasions, the show would be published but would not be placed on the front page or the new content slider. It would simply have its own episode page put up and that was it. And when I went to Mashard about this, he would tell me, why do you care? Nobody listens to you anyway. Your numbers suck. It doesn't matter if you go on the front page. This is if he even responded at all. And when he did respond, it would be hours or even days after the fact. Many have spoken about Mashard's legendary evasiveness. Well, I got it too. I mean, the way he's saying this, it does sound very cartoonishly supervillainy. Even the people who have said that Mashard's a dick doesn't sound right. I'd also want to rewind this to Mashard bullies women. It's in the same doc where he clearly bullied a man. Alison says that Mashard targets women, but here is a story about Mashard bullying a man. So obviously, by your guys' logic, he doesn't care about gender, he bullies everyone. Doesn't make sense, it's not a gender issue, clearly. He would also randomly message me to offer feedback on the show. Invariably, it was negative and mostly abusive. Your background music sucks, you need to lose the British girl. Skyblaze, our convention tabletop correspondent, is from the UK. She's boring. Why do you do so many movie reviews? We got dug for that. After several years of not having any problem with how we handled our MP3 downloads, we were told randomly that all MP3 files had to be less than 20 megabytes in size. This was for a show that at the time had recorded audio from 6 people plus background music and ran for 2 hours. I had to purchase web hosting and host the files myself and send Mashard a download link, which half the time he wouldn't post and I'd have to chase him down and make noise that he put it up to get me to quiet down. This continuous treatment from the management sent me into a deep and at times very nearly suicidal depression. Given the events surrounding what I'm about to relate, I will spare you the details of my emotional traumas. I get it, like when you're pouring your heart and soul into this content, and like I say, this is your passion, and Channel Awesome is where you're getting the majority of the views. So when it's just being ignored and pushed back and then limited, I get it. It is like really, really disheartening. I'd imagine, obviously, I've not been in this situation. I've had issues with YouTube hiding my content and that's bad enough. In January of 2014, Justin Juario Carmichael died by self-inflicted gunshot. Carmichael was a much loved and respected member of the community. I personally didn't know him very well, again, because nobody was willing to talk to me, but I thought there would be a nice thing to do a kind of an online wake where we'd bring everyone together who wanted to be there to say a few words about Justin. I didn't see anyone else talking about the idea. We know now why. So I approached Mashard with the idea. In a rather, in hindsight, out of character moment, he got back to me immediately. And I presented him with the idea and he said, well, you're not going to have to worry about that, Gonzo. So my first thought is he's already got something planned. But then he follows that up with, nobody knows who you are. They won't care about anything you're going to put together. We're going to have Doug or Lewis or someone put something together. Someone people actually come here to see. So I covered this in the Change the Channel documentary. Certain things in this Google Doc were allegedly lies. And this is something that was apparently bullshit. didn't actually happen. And again, when you've got a Google Doc with things that have been proven to have been lies, and then you've got compulsive liars in it that have been caught out being compulsive liars, it's hard to take many of these claims seriously. And I sat there stupefied. I couldn't believe that he had said that. Not just that he'd flat out said that to me, but that he'd said that about a plan to let people mourn a loss. And I realised that Mike Michaud never cared about anyone beyond what use he could get out of them. Oh, he would put together a Justin Carmichael tribute, but it wouldn't be about the loss. It wouldn't be about letting people grieve. To him, it was just another piece of content. Something he can make money off, even if only indirectly. I could even see his thought process. What's the only thing that sells better than sex? Death. He was thinking someone who never heard of Channel Awesome finding this tribute and going, oh, someone on this site killed themselves? What's this about? What's this website he worked on? It was never about the loss, it was about promoting the brand. That was the moment I realised Michaud was not and never was a man to be trusted. And that was the moment I knew my days with Channel Awesome were numbered. If he said that, yeah, that would be what that is. Around the time the company moved from the That Guy with the Glasses website to the current Channel Awesome domain, I suffered a laptop crash and lost my login credentials to the site back end. I want to say it was just after the transition, as I have vague memories of at least one episode of N3 going up on the new site. I sent numerous messages to Michaud asking him to send me my credentials so I could log in and schedule shows, but I never received any reply. Finally, after a few months of this... Months? You couldn't log in for months. I got a message from one of my team members on the show over Facebook. Did you pull the show from Channel Awesome? And I didn't know what he meant. And he said, our show page on the Channel Awesome website is gone. All of our episodes we have there are gone. And I looked on the website and sure enough, our show listing was gone, as were any links on the front page for us. And when I logged into my Channel Awesome email address, I was provided the email billysmith@channelawesome.com. Fat load of good that did me. I found that it had been shut down. So all my emails, all my messages, poof, not there anymore. And that's how I found out we'd been cut from Channel Awesome. No notice, no warning, no nice we wish Dr. Gonzo the best of luck on the website, just cut away like a stray lock of hair. I mean, there's not much I can actually say. I say you're completely in the right here. Again, assuming that is all true. I'm sure you will hear from many former Channel Awesome contributors about the awesome producer community. I was a tight-knit group of friends who stood up for and helped each other and got along oh so well. Let me tell you, after Aussiegate, I don't remember any of that. The reason I believe that my abuse at Michaud's hands went unnoticed and unknown until now is because I was so isolated from the wider producer community. People that I had called friends just stopped talking to me or having anything to do with me. And people who say they're my friends now, who were back then in positions to know what was going on and could have helped me, stood idly by and did nothing. Ooh. Who's that? Name him, Gonzo. If I wanted to get anyone to come on the show, it just didn't happen because nobody would return my messages. So after a while, why bother trying? I never got any friendly, hey, you seem like you're having a rough time, or hey, haven't heard from you in a while, how are you doing? Nobody said anything in my defense throughout the entire time I was Michaud's whipping boy. I don't know if Mike Dodd's rumour about Michaud blackballing me to other producers is true or not, but it would not surprise me at all isolating a victim from their support network as a textbook abuse tactic. And I was basically locked alone in a dark room with Michaud for all the support I was able to get from the community. So the only conclusions I can draw is that either Michaud told them to stay away or none of them really cared enough to ask after me and find out what was happening. See, what is weird to me is that you put this in the Google Doc, Gonzo, and no one's told you. No one said, oh yeah, the rumours were true, he did tell us that. You've just said, I don't know if I don't know if the rumour is true or not, but you've got all these producers in this, if none of them have heard that, obviously the rumour's not true. We've cracked the case. Obviously people just didn't want to reply to you. Surely they would confirm it or deny it. You would have an answer. I don't remember the community because frankly I wasn't a part of it. But let me be clear, the soulless, money-grabbing piece of dog shit had us all fooled. If you take one lesson from my story, let it be this. Channel Awesome is a meat grinder, and it is, owners and managers, a fat swine feeding off the blood, sweat and tears of good people. Them and their like care nothing for you, your well-being, your ambitions, and they will tear you open and suckle on your innards if you give them the chance. Maybe that's not the happy ending people want to read, but if all this other drama should teach us anything, it's that nothing involving Mike Michaud has a happy ending. So yeah, much like Holly, I think, assuming that's true, completely warranted. Next, we've got Renegade Cut. I don't know who you are. I joined Channel Awesome in February 2011 and stayed until April 2016. I was brought into the fold when Channel Awesome launched Blistered Thumbs, a related website dedicated exclusively to video games. Eventually, I made a new web series and requested to be switched over to the main website. Compensation to Blistered Thumbs writers came only in the form of the occasional review copy of a game. No actual paid compensation. Those who were video producers like myself received nothing. Like all Channel Awesome contributors, we were paid in exposure. Blistered Thumbs eventually died due to neglect from Channel Awesome management. Because of this, it is difficult for those who worked there to use their experience with Blistered Thumbs as a business reference to gain paid work. In other words, the exposure did not work the way the contributors hoped. Not being paid for it, I don't understand. It's a hobby, you're all doing... Early in the days of my new web series on Channel Awesome called Renegade Cut, Doug Walker made a rebuttal video editorial to my short video on The Big Lebowski. He used video footage from my channel without asking me. I believe in some level of fair use, but this is a remarkably unusual thing for management to do to a subordinate. I believe Doug Walker thought he was doing me a favour simply by referencing my web series. I found it insulting that I was not consulted. Channel Awesome does not in any way own rights to the videos made by its unpaid producers. But you're reviewing movies. Doug did to you what you do to movies. That's the same thing! The history of broken promises and extreme lack of communication between management and video producers eventually created a tense relationship. After years of persisting, Mike Michaud finally agreed to meet with us over Skype in small groups of about 4 at a time. In my meeting, Michaud claimed that we would do what he could to meet our needs and presented himself as agreeable and understanding, but over time he bowed out of communicating with us completely. By the time I left the company, Michaud had long since left the official Channel Awesome Skype chat that we used for collaborations and for producer management communication. He refused to speak with us any longer. I mean, there's not much, it's just no communication. Okay. Epic fail. Cool. When I was at Channel Awesome in the first year of it or so, I found myself regularly in a group call with Michaud, Bargo, sometimes Ellis, Mike or Lindsay, Ozzy, Rollo and myself. Usually some sort of mix and match of all of those. During but sometimes, calls would end up just being Rollo, T, myself and Ellis. We all had a pretty different sense of humour and our personalities worked out, and we'd sometimes just spend convos just laughing our asses off at whatever the hell we would talk about that night. However, one night in particular after a call, Ellis kept messaging me afterwards on Skype. This wasn't unusual. We'd usually just BS about stuff. However, he was supposedly intoxicated. I say supposedly because that's the excuse I heard later, but he was typing very coherently, not one misspelled word during a conversation. I don't know, I've been drunk and have been able to still spell correctly because I'm like really focusing and taking my time, but I don't know. What started as a simple enough conversation quickly became a very uncomfortable. A very uncomfortable what? Proofread your Google Doc, man! This took ages for you to put together and you didn't proofread it! He kept asking more personal details, eventually going full into, I heard from a little birdie that you were gay. Oh, I heard you were at least bi. Oh, so you're just curious about guys then? Really pushing as if he was fishing for something. Maybe he was desperate. This conversation quickly turned very one-sided and even more uncomfortable as he went on telling me all the things he wanted to do to me, the things he wanted me to do to him. Just give him a shot, he said. This went on for 2 hours. For these 2 hours, I typed not one word to him, but he had this entire conversation with himself and multiple times tried the whole, sorry, I didn't mean to scare you off tactic on me, as if it was going to make things better. I showed this conversation log to 2 people. I believed I showed part of it to Rollo T because I was freaked the out and he was the guy I trusted the most, and I remember him being completely blown away. The other person I showed was Michaud. I messaged Michaud telling him, look what this guy is doing, I'm super freaked out, and keep in mind I believe this was just before the anniversary brawl. The only thing I ever heard from Michaud was, damn it, I told him he couldn't be doing this I'll take care of it. So it wasn't even the first time. You know. And then it was never spoken of again. I never heard from Ellis again, and I have zero idea if that was part of the reason he was fired from the company or not. Weirdly enough, the Seinfeld hatred that I sometimes joke about actually has to do with this story. 2 of the things Ellis said to me during that have stuck in my head because of how pathetic and how weird it was. He kept calling me his sexual cupcake. What the is that? After those hours of him talking to himself, he finally gave up talking to me. But he did make one last ditch effort to hit on me, and it by far was the worst pickup line I have ever been given. Hey Sean, hey cupcake, do you like Seinfeld? No I do not. Oh my god. No, that is awful, Mike Ellis doing that, so I'm sorry that happened to you. No, that guy's weird. Beth Elderkin. Why do I know that name? Before I share anything, let me state that for me, business and friendship are 2 different things. The Walkers and other Channel Awesome crew have been and continue to be good friends of mine. Others may not share that view, and that's their right. Well, this is interesting. How do they feel about you being in this Google Doc? After I'd lost my last full-time job, I started working with Channel Awesome on a series called Awesome Comics. I was promised by Mike an hourly rate for what turned out to be several hour shoots, including waiting time. Travel time was my own cost, though in hindsight it shouldn't have been. It wasn't until after I recorded the first episode, along with taping a several hour intro sequence, did I find out I'd only been paid for 1 hour, the hour I had been on camera. I raised my concerns about this because I was not told ahead of time that my pay would be 1/5 of what I was expecting. Hourly wages for actors and TV personalities doesn't start and end when the cameras roll. Management was was understanding, but also told me Mike had said in no short words that Channel Awesome was already losing money, and that they couldn't pay me the full hourly wage I'd been promised. They offered me a few bucks more for travel, and I accepted. Looking back, I should not have done so. I was using up my entire work week to basically break even, given travel and food costs, and my time was worth more than that. Soon after, I got an offer to be IO9's weekend editor, and I accepted. It meant having to quit Channel Awesome a couple of months after I'd started, which I felt guilty about. But again, in hindsight, it was the right decision. Eventually, my working relationship with Channel Awesome ended. It was because of a number of things, namely my career. But I will say that if management had paid me what I was worth for Channel Awesome, I would have been more inclined to stay. Yeah, it's fair play. Fair point. I'm still grateful that my husband and I were brought into the Channel Awesome family, and I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. I made some wonderful friends and my career grew thanks to my time there. But good experiences don't negate unacceptable ones. I share this story not to shame but to educate. In a gig economy, we're tempted, coerced, and sometimes even forced to lower our value in order to get by. You're worth more than that, as was I. Who the hell is Cferra? No. Just looked up a picture, no idea. In the beginning, Channel Awesome was sort of indifferent about the wiki. They treated us nothing more than fans. Who are you? Sure, we'd get special things like autographed DVDs. We even had a link on the sidebar on the old website. Sometimes they said they liked us, and then it was found out that the higher-ups did not like the wiki at all. It was strange because they'd say on streams that they liked them when in actuality they did not. We found that several people were being talked about behind their backs while maintaining a facade. That was strange when you consider several websites work harmoniously with their corresponding wiki like the Homestar Runner wiki. The Chapman bros use it constantly, and they've been around a lot longer than Channel Awesome. It used to be relatively easy to contact the administration when it came to the blogs. Now errors pop up when users go to post. They just don't seem to care about fixing various errors which can be fixed. The site's management has often neglected to update various parts and leave the blogger spotlight untouched for months or even years at a time. That was a pointless... What was the point in that? They said they liked us, but they didn't. They were mean. And more about the website not being updated. I'm losing energy, man. Full Fantastic. I like Full Fantastic. I was invited to join the Channel Awesome team as a writer in late 2009. A very short time later, they warned us that the article section would soon be disappearing from the site. Why they would hire me so close to making that decision, I found a bit questionable. Not wanting to immediately lose my chance at having a platform, I decided to essentially tackle my article topics in video form. They were a bit rough, and I was perhaps a bit young at 17 to tackle essential cinema, but they got the point across and they decided to pick up the series as marvellous movies. A little before I began creating my videos, Holly was hired as HR for Channel Awesome. She was essentially presented to me as someone who should be a main contact. A little bit later, Mike Ellis was let go. Up until that point, he was the one site runner I could get to consistently respond to me, though our discussions were a bit questionable, such as the time he randomly mentioned the fact that he was high. What even is this company, man? After the third episode, a few issues began to pop up in my personal life. On the simplest level, it was my senior year of high school. Stress was kicking in as I was focused on school. But what really took my focus away from the site was that I was finally accepting that I was gay, which living in a town of only 5,000 people in rural Illinois is a scary experience. Now, I don't want to make accusations of homophobia and the like toward Channel Awesome, but at the same time, the idea of going to someone like Michard and saying, hey, I'm having some issues with my sexual identity and need some time away from the site to figure things out certainly didn't sound inviting. However, as I've said, Holly was presented to me like a key member of the team and she had been open about her association with the LGBTQ community. So naturally, I discussed coming out with her and made it clear my time would be occupied for a couple of months. Of course, things didn't go as smoothly as I had planned. Pretty soon I was faced with the threat of not being allowed to go off to college due to coming out. So what was already a stressful period turned into a threat against my future. As you can probably imagine, creating content for that guy with the glasses wasn't a main focus at that point. See, he gets it! Videos aren't everything, folks! Stop complaining if people mistitle your videos. Stop complaining if your videos aren't doing as well as Doug Walker, for sake. Yet throughout that time period, I remained determined to better my content. I consistently worked on improving my style, but avoided publishing any videos until it was up to the standards of other producers. I became focused on how to make a positively focused series entertaining. I even put quite a bit of money down on a camera. Finally, ready to return to that guy with the glasses, I contacted Bargo with my improved series ready. However, while getting ready to message him, I happened to look at the website and noticed my videos were no longer in the drop-down menu. Instead of going straight to my new video, I instead brought this up. He claimed that because I hadn't produced anything in several months and hadn't contacted anyone about why, they decided to remove me. I addressed a few issues. I had contacted someone from the site, Holly. We were all connected on Skype. If they were wondering where I went, they had my contact information immediately available. Additionally, I explained my reason for needing to take time away. They entirely ignored the first point. Apparently talking to Holly didn't qualify as talking to the company. I got in a conversation with both Bargo and Rob where both consistently belittled the experience I had been going through. Having a rather traumatic experience meant nothing to them. They didn't even offer sympathy. Even if they had still decided to not let me return, they could have at least acknowledged that my situation was rough. So while I don't want to accuse anyone behind Channel Awesome as being outright homophobic homophobic, they certainly didn't care about the well-being of queer people. I guess the word here is indifference opposed to hatred. I would go in more detail on what exactly was happening in my personal life, but I have since reconciled with the person behind it and would prefer not to drag the details into a public spotlight. But it had gotten to the point where some people were inviting me to move in with them due to what was happening, so it was clearly severe. You know, there's been gay jokes. I think anything can be joked about. So I don't think you can, I mean, not that you're doing this, Topher, but you know, you can't point to the gay jokes on Channel Awesome and use that as, evidence of homophobia. It might have just been ignorance, like someone who's not personally experienced that kind of thing coming out and how scary it is, especially at that age. They shouldn't have belittled you. And that is definitely worth an apology. But I'm just saying, I don't think it's homophobia. I think that it was ignorance more than anything. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. After spending an hour repeatedly telling me none of that was a good enough excuse, Rob and Bargo told me they would discuss with Mashard whether I would be allowed to return to the site. But it was clear from their language it wasn't actually being considered. I brought up what had happened on Twitter as I was obviously furious at having had such an abusive conversation with people I had until then looked up to. They then told me that those tweets meant I wouldn't be allowed back on, as if anyone would believe for a second they actually considered it. Afterward, I had to directly remind them that I was also an article producer and my writing was still up. They even asked if I actually wanted them to be removed. Why was that a question? They had just released me from the company on incredibly bad terms. Why would I let them keep my articles up? It doesn't make any sense. Unfortunately, I was the first person to let go from the site without being told. Being the first, it left the impression that my content was just that terrible. I quickly removed any contact I had with other producers as I was convinced everyone was on their side. Even my debut video was published in the final time slot of its night. They clearly didn't want me there from the beginning. It wasn't until I saw Change the Channel mentioned on a forum that I realised they were acting the same way to everyone. Hell, looking back, I would have loved if they simply told me, hey, your videos aren't that great or getting enough viewers, because I could at least agree that, yeah, my first few videos weren't especially great, and I'm pretty sure that's the real reason they removed me. But instead, they fumbled that conversation so badly that they had convinced me I was being let go for coming out at an inopportune time. It's saying something that even through all of the actual trauma I went through while coming out, my worst enemy from that era was my conversation with Rob and Bargo. And I thought Bargo was a good egg. There were rumours he banged Lindsay. That's the rumour why he got fired. Yeah, the rumour was that he banged her and then bragged to everyone and that's why he got fired. Don't know if it's true. I can't confirm or deny. Animerica! My introduction as a member of Channel Awesome was a group Skype call with Mike Mashard. During this call we were told that the following things were going to happen for us. Each of us would be promoted routinely at the top of the page to draw eyes to our content. Doug would do a video promoting us and our video for that week, and it would also be cross-posted with his NC video for that week. Did this happen? Partially. While all of the above did happen, it only happened one time. In addition, when Doug promoted us, he sounded condescending and indifferent. It was barely a plug at all. I was quite put off by his attitude throughout, almost as if talking about anime was beneath him, like he was being forced to do something he had absolutely no interest in. On top of this, for no discernible reason, once the first run for us new producers was over, they incorporated all of the already established well-known producers who clearly had no need for it. Doug never again did any promotion for anyone, and being featured did very little for us in the long term. See, I've seen this before where, like, again with this, he didn't even watch my video. Doug promoted us, but it seemed like he didn't care. Grown adults! Oh, some of this is so sad. We would receive sponsored giveaways to go along with being featured from companies like Amazon, Humble Bundle, Gamefly and others. Did this happen? No. Instead, when it came time for our producer spotlight, we were told that the giveaway was optional and that if we wanted to do it, we had to arrange it ourselves. There was no sponsorship, simply a free gift card. Just take a gift card, I suppose. Everyone would visit the Channel Awesome studio to meet with Doug and Rob to discuss how to grow in the Channel Awesome community and develop an audience there. Did this happen? No! No offers were ever extended, no further word on this was ever heard, and when I brought it up with them, I was ignored. New custom headers from the new Channel Awesome website would be created to reflect the producers posting videos that day, creating a dynamic eye catch that indirectly promotes everyone. Did this happen? No! Only after asking about it a few weeks later was I informed that it was being scaled back to only feature big producers like Linkara, Brad, etc., and then it was silently dropped. Mike said that he would be hands-on with us initially to help with our integration to the site and make sure we became members of the community. Did this happen? No! Instead, Mike would always respond to my questions and concerns as if I was annoying and or not worth his time. He always had his Skype set to unavailable, and if he responded at all, it was not until I prodded him multiple times to do so. Eventually, he ducked out entirely and assigned Greg to communicate with us, who also, after only a couple months, stopped replying with any degree of immediacy. We were never seen as assets by them, only burdens. Well, if you got better views. It's a joke! It's a joke! I would have thought that, as with anything in life, us newest in the fold would have faced the strictest enforcement for violating the rules set out for us. After all, we were the rookies. We were the ones who needed to be made to adapt to their way of doing things since we never had before. Instead, on multiple occasions, Greg, possibly via Mike, doled out the harshest punishments on the veteran producers who, in every case, had never once stepped out of line. As has been well documented, Chaos D1 faced the harshest penalty, being removed from the site for being 1 day late with his second upload for the month, even though he had been with the site for years and had never before been late. Tom White also experienced the same treatment when matters in his private life also caused him to be 1 day late. Exactly like D1, he was told that it was his one strike and that if he did it again, he would be permanently removed from the site. I personally witnessed all of this play out in real time. Again, if this is true, it's some weird rules for this site. I cannot fathom how such treatment is justifiable or to any extent even intelligent. Where is the value in demoralising the producers most loyal to your brand with the most impeccable track records of reliability? What sort of people would do blatantly disrespect and demean those who they should ostensibly value? One might then at the very least expect such obtusely stringent enforcement to happen across the board, because if such productive members of the site would face such withering penalties, everyone else would too, right? One would be wrong. In fact, I heard from several smaller producers that they went several months in a row without publishing a video, didn't hear a word from Greg, and remained on the site with no acknowledgement whatsoever. Maybe they went months, but the videos were better. I don't know, it doesn't make sense. While it has become a very apparent reality that Channel Awesome only cares about Doug Walker and his series somewhat recently, this has been the case since we were brought on the site, if not earlier. Near the beginning of our tenure, I was taking a look at the new website where I noticed a sidebar widget titled Popular Videos. Not surprisingly, all of the top videos were Nostalgia Critic episodes with maybe a Linkara video poking in once or twice. In addition, this widget was placed above the daily video sidebar, meaning people were more likely to click away from the page featuring our videos and just watch an odd video of Doug's. Like, I know you're all frustrated, and I'm gonna keep repeating myself, but Doug gets the most views. I get it, you're saying, like, at least promote them, but you would focus on Doug when he's the moneymaker, and it just comes across that you're bitter that he's got success and you don't. But yeah, they could have put more videos on the sidebar if you just put like 1 or 2 of Doug's. Fair point. Just business. I contacted Greg about this and questioned the purpose of advertising Doug when the overwhelming majority of people coming to the site already did so primarily for him. That's a very good point. Okay, I'll retract my last point. I suggested that the widget could be modified so that it only included a maximum of 1 video from each producer. This way other producers could find spots on the list and possibly some of the new producers as well. Before suggesting this, I even contacted our web developer who confirmed that such a thing was most definitely doable. Greg responded by telling me that doing such a thing would be completely impossible. Obviously this was objectively false, but not wanting to appear hostile, I then suggested the possible addition of another sidebar that featured the most popular videos from the new producers. Call it Popular and Fresh or something like that. For the record, I suggested this because I could do it myself in WordPress. Greg said they might consider it, but it never came to pass. Instead, the popular video sidebar was quietly deleted and nothing was ever done for us, as the only takeaway for them was how immensely popular Doug was. After all, that's the only thing they care about. Has he got the most views? What aren't you getting? It was the Doug show. Yes, because he was the most popular. The entire reason why I started making videos online was because of that guy with the glasses. In fact, in the first 2 seasons of our flagship series, Animerica, we included Inspired by That Guy with the Glasses in our opening credit sequence. I was so excited to join the site that I posted it as a milestone in our Facebook group the day I got the news. 3 years later, I was unhappy, not valued, neglected, and getting absolutely nothing out of it. The other producers' overall misery permeated our side chat as only a few were getting anything positive out of it anymore. What really drew the line for us was how Chaos D1 and Tom White were treated. We weren't around long enough to hear about everything else that had gone on. I had no desire to be a part of an organisation that treated long-standing contributors with such disregard and disrespect. While we never personally suffered any direct abuse from the leadership there, we also never received any real aid. Our views dropped off the map, as did many others, and no one batted an eye. I do not miss Channel Awesome. I would never want to be part of it again, and that for me at least is the worst part. I mean, at least he admits he wasn't abused. Okay, Tom White. Mike Birdman Dodd had worked really hard on Blistered Thumbs. He created daily content for a long while. He also had extensive background in PR and promotional work and had a number of contacts in the industry that he tried to use to help promote the site. He offered his expertise to Mashad lots of times, even including drafting up formal proposals to help turn the site into a successful gaming website. He was completely ignored, and later Blistered Thumbs tanked. When they migrated all the Blistered Thumbs producers over to that guy with the glasses, they ignored Mike Dodd and essentially dropped him from the site without telling him. I was on a Skype call with Mashad when he was explaining how to use that guy with the glasses system when he casually mentioned that Dodd was going to be let go. Mike had to hear the news from me. He even provided a Skype recording, so that's there. Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Before this had happened, I was really passionate about Channel Awesome. After the way Mike Dodd was treated, I lost my enthusiasm for the site. I just kind of kept on, but no longer felt any particular loyalty. Yeah, that's fair. I'd been talking to Mashad about running a trivia contest on my channel and he liked the idea. I was going to offer my own prize, but Mashad insisted on using a Sega Genesis he had lying around the office as a prize. I was reluctant because at this point his reputation was that he could be untrustworthy about this sort of thing, but I said sure. The contest ended. I contacted the winner and got their address. The winner was in Russia and immediately I was nervous that would make the game system expensive to ship and had a feeling Mashad would try to tell me that wasn't the deal or something. So I forwarded the address to Mashad. He didn't bat an eye at the fact that it was Russia and told me it would be sent out immediately. I followed up later and he told me it was sent out. Months went by and the winner never received the prize. I asked Mashad about it and he ignored my messages. The winner told me that if it was mailed out, the post office would have given him some kind of customs number, even if there was no tracking information, and asked if that could be provided. I asked Mashad and got no reply. Again, he's provided the screenshots. It's quite bad. Especially, oh my god, like 7 months in between. That's really bad, man. I was in a really difficult position because I didn't want to badly represent Channel Awesome and my boss by telling the winner it's not my fault, but I was given nothing to work with. Eventually, after like 6 months with no prize, I had to apologise to the winner and send him an Amazon gift card instead. Years later, I sent the winner an email again and still no prize. If Mashad actually did deliver the prize as promised, my best guess is that the package got returned and he never said a word to me about it, even after repeated follow-ups. Yeah. It's not good, Mashad. I wanted to give you the benefit of the doubt, but I can't. Assuming this is all true. But I mean, this one's got screenshots, so he's got more than the other people. By the end of 2016, a lot of people had been kicked off the site for minor reasons. Alison getting booted was particularly ridiculous. I knew that Alison had been more outspoken than other producers, and although I thought it was stupid to remove her from the site, I figured Mashad was just petty and lashed out at anyone who would disagree with his methods. No, only women. And men. So I kept my head down and just did my best to be professional and compliant. The 2 videos a month policy was extremely difficult. 2 videos a month? Get on my level, bitch! They had removed Ross Scott and Guru Larry from the site for not producing content fast enough, which was bizarre to me since both had between 100,000 and 200,000 subscribers and were some of the bigger draws. Guru Larry was reinstated later. I was feeling constant stress trying to work within their time constraints, but I managed to keep up with their policy. Then I ended up having to move. I contacted Greg and let him know the situation, and I said I think I'd be able to do 2 videos a month during October and November, but because of the move I might not be able to. He said that was fine. I actually still managed to put out 2 in October as usual and only 1 in November, so I still did alright. In December I finished the first video early on in the month, but at the end of the year I ended up not finishing my video until the 30th, but had some issues with the final product that had to be fixed. Seeing that I needed a little extra time to finish and upload it to YouTube, I scheduled the video for January the 1st instead of the 31st. I figured it wouldn't be a big deal because I'd known other producers who had been lax, and I figured since I gave Greg a heads up about my situation, it would be easily understandable that the move was still affecting me. I honestly didn't think he'd even notice. I was already removed from the site and my login was revoked the next day. I'd been with Channel Awesome for 6 years. I'd been completely professional and reliable, never argumentative for even a moment. I did volunteer work for them in their charity live streams, and they removed me instantly the moment I was late on one video after I already warned them of my situation. I actually think the only reason I got removed at all was because after I warned them of my move, they were wanting to see if I messed up so they could remove me instantly. Other producers had not produced content in months and never got removed. After I talked to Greg, he told me I would get one last chance and that was it. Any more issues, I would be kicked off the site for good. Do you know what I've noticed? It's that the lesser known people in this doc have the most valid grievances. So you got the forerunners who have been promoting this shit. Alison, Marzgurl, Linkara, bitching and complaining about nothing. And then the people who actually have genuine, because this is genuinely stupid. They're the ones who actually have valid reasons. It's baffling. Chaos D1 got kicked off the site in much the same manner as me. He didn't put up a second video 1 month, but while they had established the rule was that you'd always get 1 second chance, he was refused a second chance because he had happened to run a poll asking people on Twitter whether they still watch him on Channel Awesome or just on YouTube. This was the last straw for me. I didn't want to sit around and wait for the next time I accidentally make some minor mistake that would have me kicked off permanently, and I couldn't support them after seeing how they treated so many of their producers, employees and fans. I made plans to leave after that and never looked back. Again, valid. Next we've got Lindsay. I'd like to preface this before I read through this. I actually feel really sorry for Lindsay Ellis. And, you know, in the past, I've mentioned like the rape video that she did. I saw her long video where she opens up about it. Lindsay's gone through a lot of The video that she did where she was taking shots, I felt really bad for her. And I like Lindsay. I left years ago and the mismanagement of Channel Awesome doesn't really haunt my every waking moment, nor did it ever. Thank you! A sensible human. An adult. Still, I see people putting words in my mouth, so I want to get some things on the record. To me, this is not about defamation or destroying them, but about clearing the air and correcting misconceptions. And I believe her. She wasn't in the audio drama, wasn't publicly slagging them off. She just did this and then moved on with her life. Take some hints, guys. First of all, I do feel like the way management approached the anniversaries from the get-go was inappropriate in a way that was never rectified. I was in my 3rd semester at USC when the 2nd anniversary happened, and the first real moment of concern came at the hotel in Reno on the set of Kikasia, when Doug was explaining the schedule and I asked a logistical question, namely what his plan was for craft services. Doug actually laughed at me like I was some princess expecting special treatment. Noah Antweiler, who was also there, explained that craft services is generally a given at any shoot, even student films. Only then was the suggestion taken seriously. I think, again, I'm going to boil this down to ignorance. I just think Doug didn't really understand, and he was getting loads of views and he thought, oh, let's do this movie. He got a bunch of money, let's make a movie, and didn't really think of the logistics. He was planning on the shooting schedule. He was in over his head. I will defend him on that. This was a set with more than 30 people and they did not have food or water until they were told to do so. To my memory, they didn't get around to it until day 2. To be clear, inexperience was not the issue. Arrogance was. Everyone who gets into film has a learning curve, but Doug and co barged in like they had nothing to learn, and this resulted in a variety of issues, from not bothering to secure permits or even learn shooting location hours, suburban nights, or to multiple injuries on the set of To Boldly Flee. They never secured production insurance. Ed Glazer and I had to step in to help during the suburban night shoot, which had next to no planning. They never hired stunt people. The whole experience was unprofessional and irresponsible. As for legality, I'm not positive, but this wasn't illegal so much as grossly unprofessional given how much money was involved. This would have broken the rules of every guild on earth, but this wasn't a union set, so what are you gonna do?
Yeah, the comments regarding permits was referring to suburban nights. They arrived at the park too early, so it was closed and they had to break in. But there's been loads of successful films where they filmed without permits and broke the law, like Mad Max, Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, The French Connection. This isn't anything specific for Channel Awesome.
Also, what do you mean there's no stunt double? You're not actors. This isn't a big budget movie. You expected stunt doubles for running through a field? You signed on for this. What do you mean stunt doubles? You're a YouTuber. You're not Leonardo DiCaprio. No, I disagree. I don't think it was arrogance, because your part there, Lindsay, suggests that Doug wasn't taking anything on board, but that's disproven in the behind the scenes when he's asking for people's help and accepting it. To Boldly Flee might have been arrogance. I do think it was ignorant for at least the first 2. The worst aspect of this for my part was the fact that when I tried to give advice or make suggestions, it was met with disdain. This was not limited to Mashad and the Walkers. There was definitely an atmosphere that viewed any sort of experience or knowledge of how film set work as a sort of elitism, in a perverse way, an anti-intellectual streak. The project I most regret was To Boldly Flee. I made my discomfort with Doug's expectations known before I set foot in Chicago, so this should come as a surprise to no one. As has been discussed elsewhere, my character's name, a parody of 7 to 9, was originally 60 of 9. Doug didn't see why this might raise hackles. Is it because it sounds like 69? What's wrong with 60 of 9? Is that sexist? Lighten up! My biggest objection was the outfit I was expected to wear. I had no say on the fact that Doug wrote my character based on 7 of 9 and I had to dress like that character. No, you didn't! Why are you signing contracts without reading the script? Why are you people doing this? I like you, Lindsay, but come on! The worst part, of course, was the transformation scene, which was just an extended rape joke. Lewis and I talked about it between each other weeks before the shoot. Lewis actually reached out to me with his concerns, so I had not read the script yet, and explained our objections to Doug together. Doug's solution was, rather than rewrite it, have a toned down version in the final cut, in which I make comical sexual assault noises instead of the original script as written. In effect, it was not changed, and it's still an extended rape joke, just perhaps less overt. Already explained that. And while we're here, Mashad expecting producers who are independent contractors to hand over their privately written and filmed crossover videos during the anniversaries to help recoup the cost of production, while themselves getting no compensation, was repugnant and exploitative. I regret not having pushed back more against this. Again, completely agree, but you're all repeating each other. During this time, there was also a streak of harassment against female contributors. The worst case that involved me resulted in an extended case with the NYPD. This was not the only incidence of harassment that went unremarked upon by Channel Awesome. There was a rash of harassment against Channel Awesome producers between 2013 and 2014, mostly women, which was never acknowledged or condemned by Channel Awesome. So I'm assuming this is referring to the Juario stuff, maybe? There's no details. There's no... I know, I guess for legal reasons, but like, I don't know, I guess legal reasons they can't say. The breaking point for me came much later. In late 2014, Channel Awesome brought on some new content producers, several of which I vouched for. One of these was Dan Olsen. In December of 2014, Dan did some investigative journalism work which resulted in him becoming the target of organised harassment and conspiracy theorists. Dan posted an article on Medium about 8chan's willful complicity in child pornography. This resulted in an organised campaign to defame Dan Olsen, declaring him a child pornographer for doing journalistic work about child pornography. The conspiracy theorists continue to this day. This happened right before Christmas on December the 23rd, 2014. I was driving home to visit my family in Tennessee. I was about 2 hours from the Virginia-Tennessee border when I get a call from Mike Machad, who was absolutely livid about something Dan Olsen has done. Predictably, these organised harassment brigades started a campaign emailing Mike Machad. Rather than seeing it for what it was, Machad blamed the victim. And instead of calling Dan to find out what happened, Machad called me while I was in the car driving home to visit my family for Christmas, because in Machad's mind, I was apparently Dan's keeper for having vouched for him when Channel Awesome was picking up new talent. This was not the first time that one or several producers was being targeted by harassment campaigns, and Channel Awesome never stood up for anyone unless it was directly related to them being demonetized. Hashtag where's the fair use. They stood silent during the Gamergate. They stayed silent while many of the female contributors over the years were targeted by Gamergate. Their business model implies that it is more important for them to be uncontroversial than it is for them to stand behind their contributors who are being targeted. To be clear, Dan did nothing wrong but was blamed by Machad, and by extension so was I, for attracting controversies from people who were somehow threatened by outing websites that enable child pornographers. I left a few days later, as did Kyle Corcoran and Dan Olsen. There's a lot to unpack there, and I also want to say, like I say, it's hard to buy some of this when they're compulsive liars, but with Lindsay Ellis, because she's just dropped it and moved on, I believe it. I think there's a lot of credibility there, personally. She's got no reason to lie, she's got no reason to, do this for attention or anything. Yeah, Machad is not a nice man. And I also hope Dan Olsen is okay with after all of that. The following story is from an anonymous contributor we are calling Jane Doe, recounting the story of a former producer who had sexually abused her and claims that management was aware of said producer's deviancy for a year and did nothing. Pieces of information including names are removed for the sake of privacy. Jane Doe has given us permission to share this story but not her name. At least 2 other victims have come forward regarding this person, but whether management knew about them is unknown. The chat is copied verbatim with the victim's permission. So this was when Channel Awesome responded to this, they accidentally revealed it was Juario. Hi, I'm one of his victims. I have nothing but hate for him. It makes me mad at all of you, even though I know you don't deserve it. It's why I left. Yeah, he groomed me. I think at first we need to come to terms with the fact that a lot of people in this chat legit did not know. That's something I need to come to terms with. I burned so many bridges with you because I was so angry. So I'll tell my facts, but I want to leave out anyone else who doesn't need this. To me, the most damning part is that folks knew and had a chance to cut off his access to fans early and did not. So I want to also clarify, because I've said in the past that Holly was at fault as well. I no longer believe that. Holly couldn't say anything for legal reasons. And it would just open up a can of worms if you were to tell, even if she took Marzgurl to one side. I don't know how Holly feels. I don't know if she wished she told her at least. But even if Justin died and Doug didn't do a tribute video, people would ask questions. I think they shouldn't have done the tribute video, maybe just stayed silent. But Channel Awesome and Holly, I don't think are at fault for not outing it, because you can't for legal reasons. I don't know, I'm sure part of it. I could have been louder. I'm no angel. Anyway, you all knew me back then. Physically, I was 18, but had the mind of a 16-year-old at best. Look, this is a serious claim. This is a serious... but you were 18, and this is not grooming. You're 18, but with the mind of a 16-year-old. At this point, this is ridiculous. You were of age, and you say it was consensual. There is manipulation, but you were... This isn't grooming. This one isn't grooming. He groomed me, convinced me to take my clothes off for him, told me he wanted to teach me how to kiss, etc. Made it seem like it was like teaching someone how to read. Anyway, I genuinely thought he was being an impassionate teacher. I came forward as best I can. Yeah, it wasn't until I read a pamphlet on child grooming techniques I went, holy that was me. Except you weren't a child! Yeah, that's the damning part. Since he didn't hurt me, I wonder how much of it was him genuinely thinking he was helping me come into my sexuality. But I am really done with all of this. I'm a different person in a different world, and I can't really drudge it all back and remain mentally healthy. This is about as brave as I get. I was so mad at all of you. I'm glad some of my anger was misplaced. I'm sorry I burned so many bridges. I was just so angry. Yeah, part of the reason I couldn't say much was because grooming isn't illegal. Yes, it is. And I can't say he raped me. Yeah, because he didn't. So there wasn't anything to tell. Yeah, seriously, like I said, when I read a pamphlet on child predator techniques, I was like, what? Oh my god, that was him and me. You weren't a child, man! You weren't a child! Now, don't get me wrong. I think after this came out, there was another accusation that a woman went to a convention or something and then woke up in a hotel room and she was drunk and Justin was on top of her sexually assaulting her. And obviously that would be rape. And that's horrible. And I think there are some other like rumours going around and stories. But this one, I'm sorry, you were 18. 18 but think you're 16 doesn't make any sense. Jane, if you want to say anything else, do you recall how long it was after you came forward to Channel Awesome management that he was finally let go? It's kind of hazy, but I'd say maybe a year. Something like a year between them first finding out he was sexually grooming female members of the channel's fan community to them doing anything about it. Yeah, that didn't really help me feel any more heard, lol. I have to say, this was very therapeutic, and I'm sorry for all the times I lashed out at you all. You didn't deserve it, and I took my anger out on you. So again, this is one word against the other. Channel Awesome say it was like a few weeks. She says it was a year, so... And apparently there are other victims. But we don't know. We don't know. I started off making fan art of Channel Awesome. All of the video creators of the site were inspirational to me and I wanted to provide some artistic input for them. For a while, I felt like I was part of the community and a lot of the creators became closer to me as a result and I've gained a lot of friends because of it. I started to become hired to create title cards for many of the content. I almost became overworked because of the sheer amount of commissions. This was on me, not on any of the content creators. It was fun and I even decided to try my hand at some of my own content. I was working full-time as an animator from time to time. I was on hiatus and I would have more free time to create content. I decided to create a show based on video games with my own writing flair and I never honestly expected to become part of Channel Awesome until Holly brought me aboard, whom I later found out I was the last one to be brought aboard before she was cut from the site altogether. So I owe her a lot of credit for me even being part of it as a content creator. At the time they were looking for content for their Blistered Thumbs website, which sort of became an afterthought. I didn't think there was a lot of attention given to the videos posted there and I honestly think the site was overrun by almost too much content, to the point where quantity mattered more than quality. Not that my work was quality, but I put as much effort into my show as I was able. Almost felt like it wasn't worth the effort. Maker, aka Blip, was dying. Blistered Thumbs got no attention and by the time they made the redesign, months and months they promised spotlights to other creators outside of the main big ones. I believe Atop the Fourth Wall was featured for all of those months. I decided to leave on my own account and that's when the drama began to come out. I mainly tried to avoid a lot of it, but it really depressed me to see how much Doug and Mike had truly seemed like they didn't care about anyone else on the site. I didn't honestly expect them to give lots of focus to others outside themselves. They had their own shows to worry about, but to make so many promises and then just cut everyone off in an instant seemed like they were just dooming themselves. But they seem to have survived and focused on a lot of nonsense that in the long run looks pretty bad from an outsider's point of view. I think the biggest issue I had was how easily they used their fanbase. I was making fan art for free out of my own free will, but when they made contests, their prizes were pretty underwhelming. And I thought it was monumentally unfair to the artists involved, but that was my opinion. Again, I was but a speck among others involved, and I don't expect to make much of an impact. I was a fan at first, I had my profession, and I wanted to join in on the fun, and I guess I joined in at the wrong time. I'm deeply saddened by the amount of hate and harm that a lot of the site has given its creators who are offering their time and money and effort into helping someone who, in my view, pretended to care about more than himself. As a business person, I can understand the position. On another, business practice is a thing to handle with care, and by kicking out the people who did do a good job with that seemed counterproductive. Ignoring warnings and making bad decisions just seemed to be going on non-stop. So yeah, I agree that it wasn't a very well-run business, but I disagree with Doug only caring about himself. I think he's done a lot of good, and there's been a lot of instances where it seems like he is a decent person. I just think he's a bit oblivious. At any rate, that's just my 2 cents. I've liked to think I moved on from all this, especially since my expertise is in a field I am happy to have been in for the past decade. I still miss a lot of the wonderful people I got to meet face to face and talk to in a more personal and friendly manner. I wish them nothing but the best. Sometimes the only way to stop toxic behaviour is to cut it from our lives entirely and not offer any help. And soon enough, they will realise what they've done. Oh, we got Iron Liz. I was a producer on the website briefly when I was dating Linkara. Oh my god, that is worth putting in the doc, you poor thing. But I was also a production assistant for Suburban Nights. I got to see some of the shady behind the scenes stuff as well as getting roped into actually being in the movie. As for the setup, the higher ups of the website were flying everyone down to Chicago, but we lived in Minneapolis together. At the time, Linkara didn't have a vehicle and couldn't drive mine, so it was offered I drive down to Chicago to save Channel Awesome some money and assist with production. If there's 2 things I recall from the production, it was being cold and hungry, as well as the phrase, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. I was never paid, never reimbursed, and never even thanked for all the work I did. And never even forced to do it. Although, you are right, you should have been thanked. And probably given gas money. So here's a few highlights of Suburban Nights. Almost immediately, the higher-ups, and by them I mean mostly Rob and Mashad, realised they didn't have enough transportation. They rented 2 minivans to shuttle people around, but at first realised they need to do multiple trips to get people from the hotel to the walker's house to the parks, etc. At first, I was asked if people wouldn't mind riding with me, but as time went on, my vehicle got roped into being used for the film's production. I drove my vehicle around helping Holly getting art supplies for costumes, picking up meals to feed the cast, and store props like the plastic prop swords when there wasn't enough space. Filming Suburban Nights was split into two groups. One group would be working grueling long hours filming on site, usually from 6 AM to about 8 or 10 PM, while the other group had the day off to rest, shoot crossovers or do miscellaneous things on their off day. I had no off day. I worked every day. This went double when the entire group was shooting together, where I would also act as a runner of sorts. But from the get-go, it was clear I was not part of the talent. I remember I asked once if I could add a coffee to a breakfast order and was told no because I wasn't talent. You had to pay for your own coffee? This didn't change either as production went on. When I was recruited to be Cloak 2, there were times where I would shoot scenes like the battle scene, be called to transport something and then be called back to shoot again. I remember one instance where I helped pick up Popeye's chicken for lunch but was essentially told that I couldn't have any despite filming at the time. I remember that entire day I ended up eating a single chicken leg and a spoonful of mashed potatoes the whole day of production. Okay, it's fair, like if you don't physically have the time to go and get yourself food, then it's a valid argument. Speaking of being hungry, I think the very first day we filmed, near the end of the day, we were filming scenes at the house where all the laptop computers were on the walls. We were there from about 4:30 PM to about 8 PM, and I remember being absolutely famished. We'd spent the morning filming in the cold, there was no lunch, and we were all stuck doing scenes there waiting to go to dinner. I remember wishing there was something to eat at the house, but there wasn't anything prepared. I also remember drinking lots of tap water. A lot of people were doing that, partially because we were all so thirsty since it was the first time we got to drink anything since our time in the park, but also because we were so hungry and it filled your stomach. What's wrong with tap water? Filming at the parks was miserable. We got to the parks at about 6:15 AM, but the main one was closed until about 8. We ended up essentially breaking into the parks to shoot, and I remember jokingly asking what we would do if a cop asked for our permits. I'm more or less told to shut up and don't ask. Shooting in those parks was very, very cold. It was hovering just below freezing in the morning when we got there to do the shoots. We would film for quite a long time out there, and there were no blankets, water or snacks while shooting. I remember in particular how 8-bit Mickey was dressed as Peter Pan and in tights with essentially nothing on his legs. He was constantly shivering. I remember Benzai too would run sprints back and forward to keep himself warm. Several of Doug's friends who played bit roles, the witch, the cat, etc., brought jackets with them, and I remember running to grab them in between takes so Mickey could warm up. Eliza too, when she was on set, was often very cold. It was particularly frustrating because the talent was unable to leave, but if I wanted to go get food for them, I'd essentially have to pay out of pocket to help. Didn't have to. They can't force you to pay. Not that I could leave anyway in the event someone needed something, or if I had to run back to the van to get some props or something else they needed. The other thing I recall is the group photos. This one really stuck out with me. When they were taking production photos, I was not allowed to be in them, especially not the big one. Holly was, but I was not. Again, I was not part of the talent. Later on, when the group was to sign photos they were to sell, I was the one that had to stuff them into envelopes and get everything in order. If I recall, there were about 500 of the photos, and I remember wondering if they'd even credit me in the movie after everything I did. This was before I was Cloak 2. When everything was said and done, I wasn't even invited to the wrap party. I believe the last day of shooting was on a Friday or a Saturday, sometime near the end of the week, and I made it to about 4:30 PM before I was so tired and hungry that I decided to throw in the towel. I finished up my filming and then ran to McDonald's, then went back to the hotel to sleep. I ended up sleeping through the wrap party and no one even came by to wake me. I don't know if anyone even mentioned me, but neither the Walkers nor Mashard even gave me a thank you. And that's up. I try, like anyone I work with, not to say, like, look at me, I'm a good person. I'm not Linkara. But like, I just think it's always worth thanking, even if it's just a bit role, you know what I mean? But the biggest issue was the injury. In the movie where Orlando destroys the cloaks, Orlando did a side stomp on my knee where I'd fall to the ground and he'd finish me off. The only problem was he did it for real and stomped my knee in. Linkara helped me back to the Walker's house, and no sooner had I got in than I was given the "we're not liable for any injuries" form to sign by Rob. I previously hadn't signed one because I wasn't talent, and he gave it to me before he'd give me any ice. I didn't want to sign it, but Rob laid the pressure on. I wasn't on the website yet and was hoping that showing them how hard I was working might help me get signed. Yeah, stupid, I know. I also didn't want to sign it because it also essentially said I was signing over the performance, as limited as it was, to Channel Awesome, and I wasn't getting paid for it. I don't remember if I signed it or not. I vaguely recall that I did, but I do recall hobbling up the stairs to get ice for my knee. Fortunately, after about a week or two it got better, but I did have a fist-sized splotchy bruise after. In the end, I came out no better for the experience. I got signed on about 4 to 6 months later, so it didn't much matter anyway. And I wasn't on the site for too long for it to matter, but there was one thing that the site did that really got my goat. The contract at the time stated that there were 6 daily upload slots that you'd have to grab if you wanted to upload content. Essentially, this went up to 7, but it was understood Doug had rights on the first 2 slots for posting content. This meant there was a mad scramble for slots, and you'd often need time to reserve them way in advance. If I recall, the site required you to post either once a month or twice a month, and as a newbie, I was back of the line. I also started in the 4th quarter around the holidays. Doug was releasing content every single day, taking up more and more slots. I think he eventually got dibs on 3, and I remember panicking because I couldn't get a slot to put content up to stay active. When I complained, I was essentially told that Doug was the star and to be quiet. Then when I couldn't get a slot to post content, I got a stern talking to by Rob. Again though, he makes the most views, so surely like YouTube content is worth more in December. Ads are worth more per click. It makes sense for Doug to post more in December, and he's the star, so therefore to make the company more money, post more in December. I think what makes me so sad about Channel Awesome was there was a lot of wasted opportunity. If they had really tried to grow the brand into a convention or live streaming, or grow outside of media review and into more formal cinema, I think they could have seen far more financial success. They used to do live streams for charity and even try to get involved with the SOPA stuff, but that was few and far between when you stack it up against the shady business practices and how they treated people. I think the wasted opportunity is just as bad as the abuse and labour violations. I hold no ill will against anyone at the site, and I want everyone to be happy in their lives and in their work, but I think the way the company was managed and the arrogance of its leadership has ensured it will be dead in the next few years. At one time too, I offered to submit a finance forecast for the company since I have a degree in applied economics, but was essentially told to mind my own business. After that too, Rob stopped responding to me over Skype, so that wasn't good. I didn't really fight to stay, and I wasn't really motivated to either. But in any event, moving on was definitely the best thing I could have done for my personal happiness and for my career. If you want to get involved in film or reviews, Channel Awesome doesn't really have anything to offer you. Also, how it hasn't been the target of a class action lawsuit yet is beyond me. So yeah, some valid points there, to be fair. Thing is, I do agree it is a wasted thing, because I think Channel Awesome, I think they could, you know how Doug did the whole demo reel finale where he spoke to himself and it was like semi-biographical. I think like Doug could possibly even make amends, or at least try to, by doing an anniversary movie, set it 10 years later, and this nostalgia critic looking around, realising everyone's, I just like that meta stuff, and nostalgia critic looking at the, disaster and no one's around anymore, and maybe addressing it in a meta way and, kind of apologising for certain things. I don't know how we could, but I just think it is a shame. And I always thought that he could, rebrand it and maybe try to bring it back and bring in new stuff again, but do it properly this time and learn from their ways. I don't know. Leslie Rice, upon joining, received multiple messages asking for me to send material I had already submitted, stressing that I would not be placed on the site until I had sent it. Scheduled episodes being moved from the date they had initially been entered. Upon being locked out of Channel Awesome files, being told for several months that I would receive a new password before being told to just send my work on via Skype and that management would take it from there. What is going on? How do you go from very valid, abuse allegations on set and injuries to, my scheduled episodes are being wrong? After being told I'd be removed from the site for failure to post 2 videos a month once, I missed a second deadline and awaited the worst. No contact was ever made by any member of the management team, and assuming that the situation would resolve itself, I went about posting my content elsewhere as usual. After half a year without contact of any sort, my content was finally removed. Okay. In the interest of transparency, we have removed the link to the fan document. We would like all information we support to be verified. Due to the extra attention received, more stories are coming out and we don't have any way of verifying fan submissions. Because of this, we cannot in good conscience continue to link to a living document. Oh, now you're looking about verifying things, but all the other is unverified. The above stories were written to the best of our personal knowledge and lies and recollection. Our belief is that Channel Awesome CEO Mike Machad has not had the best interests of anyone but himself in mind in the management of the company, and that Doug and Rob Walker have also done little to show that they are concerned with the rest of the contributors that have been partnered with Channel Awesome. While in many instances one or all 3 of these parties may have simply been complicit in many dealings, in other instances they have been directly involved with our mismanagement and in some cases egregious mistreatment. Our stories are many and varied from content creator to content creator, and yet many stories also mirror one another's experiences. We believe that by making these statements in regards to Channel Awesome that we are largely doing something that we believe to be morally correct, and we hope that what you have read above has been beneficial in your decisions to support any number of content creators. And above all else, we hope that you learn from our stories and that you as a reader do not find yourself in situations similar to those that we have already experienced. It is not necessary for you to remain in a situation that makes you uncomfortable simply so you can produce entertainment or other kinds of media. We thank you for the time it has taken for you to read our stories, and we wish all of you well in your future endeavours. And there you have it. It got a bit more sinister towards the end. There's definitely mismanagement. It was a poorly run company. Some people do have genuine grievances, and people have been complete arse faces. Do I think that they need to be blacklisted forever? No, I don't. I think there needs to be accountability. And I wish, Doug has kind of, he's spoken up about it and said, yeah, they f***ed up some things. I don't know. I feel like they should have sat down and done this and maybe, basically done what I've just done, but, less jokes. And I just think maybe they really could have handled this situation a lot better. But that's my honest thoughts. I'm still good terms with people on both sides. So, hope you guys enjoyed this. And maybe now will be the last time I mention it. Although, Brad did 2 movies. No, he did 3 movies.